Good evening, everybody. Yes, just like a Royals game during the 1980s, first pitch tonight, 7:05 on Chiefs Digest Live. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Sorry. One of these days, I'm going to get the hang of this, and I'm going to start at 7 o'clock, maybe even 6:59 in back-to-back weeks. That's the goal. So got to aim high. I swear one day it is absolutely going to happen. I am Derrick, of course, from Chiefs Digest here for our weekly Q&A, and can't wait to get started. Hopefully everybody's got a lot of questions this week. We're kind of in between things right now. We're kind of, I would say I think we're well into, I think safe to say, phase 3 of free agency, if you're into scoring those types of things and which ebbs and flows of free agency that we're in. It's only been, the new league year's only been 6 days in, and yet I'm safe. I'm safe calling it. I'm safe calling it wave 3. So, been kind of quiet the last couple of days on the Chiefs front, but the last few free agent signings that this team has had have been keeping some of their own players. The latest news tonight, not a Chiefs player coming back, but one leaving. Luttrell breaking the news right there. Yes, McCole Hardman to the Green Bay Packers. We'll see how that works out for McCole. I know he had a visit with the Bears as well, so it looks like a couple of options. And yes, Luttrell, it is a beautiful windy day, and hooray, it is Q&A day. So hopefully everybody's doing safe and sound and surviving the wind, and looking forward to the possibility that it's 70 degrees at midnight tonight here in Kansas City, and then blizzard conditions tomorrow night when we get that apparently a dusting with 40-mile-per-hour winds. I mean, that's just what happens in Kansas City. So get used to it. That's what I tell everybody that moves here. It's just the way we roll. I'll try not to bring any of my bitterness from Missouri Tigers hiring Kelly Harper as the new women's basketball coach, because even though Kelly Harper is a very nice person and a good coach, I wanted Molly Miller because all that she has done is win, and she's from Springfield. And I say this despite the fact that she went to Kickapoo, which, of course, is the worst high school in the world. But that's okay. I was willing to overlook that because all she does is win, and she's from Springfield, but things don't work out that way. So I'm just leaving it there. All Chiefs tonight, NFL. I mean, you guys can ask anything you want to. I mean, Nick and I generally don't have any lines that we draw. So if you got some other questions too, I mean, if you want to really talk about college basketball, I'll let you. I'll allow it. We'll see how excited Nick is for that. He's got to cover college basketball, so he knows a lot more about it than I do. So you probably would prefer to ask his opinions about it. But I'm interested to see how everybody feels about the Chiefs and how they have gone about free agency so far. I'll admit, I mean, I like what they've done. Yeah, there could probably be a couple of other improvements here and there that I think that Brett Veach and his team wants to still work on. I think they'd like some more depth along the defensive line for sure. I still think that they're going to add another veteran left tackle, not anybody necessarily over Jalen Moore, but at least somebody to push Jalen Moore. Could be somebody that they're familiar with, could be somebody else entirely. But I still think that they need somebody like that. There's probably a few other places that they could, pick up some veterans here and there. But honestly, I mean, if you look at free agency right now, I just don't think there's a lot of difference makers that are out there. Charles Omenihu, I think, is going to be the biggest name that you would look at as one of the Chiefs players that I think they would like to have back. I think Charles would like to be back. It's just a matter of Charles Omenihu finding his market and getting comfortable with that and getting what he wants. And hey, if there's another team out there willing to pay him more than the Chiefs are willing to pay him, he might end up there. But I still think it's a possibility. And I know Chris has got a question on that. We'll hit here in a minute. But I like what the Chiefs have done. I really like the Christian Fulton signing. I think the Jalen Moore signing was about the best that they could do in that situation. Reality of it is just that I think NFL teams did a really good job this year of keeping their own free agents. If there are players available, as Nick and I have talked about, there's generally a reason why. And that's really one of three reasons. It's either they're too old, they're too slow, or they're not good enough. And they might be more than one of those. They might be all three. And, you look at the free agents, and if you look at like market value that some of the sites like Spotrac and Over the Cap do, most of the high price free agents that are still out there on the board, honestly, are all over 30. It's wide receiver heavy. I'm not sure there's anybody out there that would really help this team unless it's a team that has some injuries and you're talking about filling in some spots. And this team wants to get younger and faster, and both offensively and defensively. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, I expect there to still be a few signings here and there. Like I said, Omenihu, I think is a big target the Chiefs would like to have back, but it all comes down to his market meeting what they're able and willing to pay. And there might be some others. I mean, I can see a Mike Pennell coming back if he wants to continue playing. This is the place for him. And the Chiefs honestly need a body like his, so I still wouldn't be surprised at that one. If I was Mike Pennell, I still wouldn't show up until July because I don't think that when I was Mike Pennell's age, last thing I want to be doing would be working out in OTAs in Kansas City. So I think I'd take the chance and say, hey, guys, can I check back with you in maybe late June? Let's see how things are going. Just get in for camp. That's fine. You'll be fine. But like I said, I'm interested in hearing what all of you think about the move so far during the offseason, during free agency, and where the Chiefs are at, where they need to go next. Fire away with your questions, and hopefully all have fun tonight. So it is a beautiful day out there, so I understand if some people are playing spring hooky. I think it's spring break in a lot of places too. So I understand it might be a little quiet tonight, but I think we can still have a great conversation. And I know you all come with great questions every week. So Chris has the first question, and I'll be honest, Chris, I'm going to have a very, very disappointing answer for you because I have not yet filled out my bracket. So I know in some places it's probably important for you to do that before the initial games on Tuesday and Wednesday night, but I'm not that. My deadline for any of the brackets that I'm in is Thursday morning. So I'll probably fill out a bracket or two. I normally, if I get the chance to have the Dukies go as far as I can, I normally do, although that Cooper Flag injury certainly has me giving pause on that. I do not like my Missouri Tigers draw in Wichita at all. I mean, I feel at least now that since everybody's on the Drake bandwagon, that this actually gives the Tigers a pretty decent chance of winning that game because Dennis Gates is going to be, hey, everybody, it's us against the world. Everybody thinks Drake's going to win this game, so you got to go out there and put a hurt on them. But I love Ben McCollum. He's a great coach. I'm trying to, I think it may have been Gary Parrish, I think was on the radio here in Kansas City this evening talking about how probably going to be the head coach in Indiana. And I mean, that's just absolutely mind-boggling to me. Incredible for him. But once again, an incredible Division II coach that was coaching in Missouri, and the Missouri Tigers don't even bother. But okay, whatever. Mizzou's in the tournament. We'll see how far Dennis Gates can take them. If they can get past Drake and get past Patrick Mahomes and Texas Tech, all they have to do is go through maybe Kansas in the Sweet 16. So, yeah, love that draw. And chances are probably Tigers and, I mean, obviously the Tigers and Kansas are both seeded to not even get there to the Sweet 16. So they have to require a couple of upsets, but we'll see what happens. I'll probably I don't know how far I can take my Tigers. I might have to fill out a couple of brackets just so I can have a realistic bracket where my Tigers bow out well before I want them to, and one where I have them running deeper than they will most likely run. So, and then of course, what will happen is that Mizzou will probably go right in the middle and just hurt me both ways. So, so I have a very disappointing answer for you, Chris, there. And I'm probably the only one that would, because I doubt that Nick, because, he does not like to make predictions. And, just because of, hey, he has to be in a little bit more neutral position on it since he covers all of this. And so it's not like anything other than that. He likes to maintain his professional neutrality. So he probably, doesn't fill out a bracket. So the only one you're getting an answer from is me, and I haven't filled one out yet. So I'm really terrible there. Chris, are you surprised that Charles Omenihu has not signed with anyone? I'm not, because I thought this was going to be a little while on Charles. I understand where Charles Omenihu is coming from because it's his third contract. For a lot of players, that's your last chance to get really well paid. And for Omenihu, it's really tough because coming off an injury, even him coming back at the end of the season like he did, a lot of teams, and I think the Chiefs are included in that group, are going to look at that as, he's still coming back from that injury. He doesn't have enough to prove that he's fully all the way back yet. There's still some risk. I mean, it's still a situation where you're probably talking about a 1-year prove-it deal. And then you're talking, if you're Charles Omenihu and you sign a 1-year prove-it deal, then you're hoping it's your fourth contract. That's where you make some more money. And that's not ideal. And remember, he was in a tough spot, coming into his free agency the last time when he was coming off his rookie deal. And he had the suspension that the Chiefs knew about, all the teams in the NFL knew about, and the Chiefs probably got him for a little bit below market on that deal, on a 2-year deal. So now, if you're Charles Omenihu, you want as many years and as much money right now as you can get. And I'm just not sure it's there. I think there's going to be too many teams, and maybe, if he pairs it with wanting to win as well, that narrows it down a little bit, because there might be some teams that are further away from winning that would offer Charles Omenihu maybe more money and more years than some teams that are in playoff contention now. And I think the Chiefs are amongst them. I get the sense the Chiefs absolutely would like to have Charles Omenihu back, but I think it would be on a short-term, high-incentive kind of a deal. I get to where a lot of the offers he's probably getting are short-term, high-incentive type deals. Is there going to be a longer term with more money deal out there? If there is, I don't blame Charles Omenihu if he takes it, wherever it may take him. But I think there's still a good chance that he ends up back in Kansas City. I think the Chiefs value him more than most teams will. And they like Charles. He's been a good teammate. Everything's been honky-dory in Kansas City. So I think the Chiefs would like to have him back. But it takes two to make a deal. And right now I understand, Charles Omenihu may be hoping and thinking that maybe there is more money out there to be had. And I just don't know if it is available. So we'll see what happens. But no, it doesn't surprise me, because I thought this was probably the way that was going to work out. A lot of teams were going to be very, iffy and concerned on Omenihu and wanting to have a low risk deal. He's at a point in his career where I understand not wanting to play and not wanting to sing for his supper. I understand, wanting to get paid now. I just don't know if that's going to happen. So his best chance is probably to get a 1-year prove-it deal, hit free agency again next year. It's just risky. It's, has a setback with the injury. Anything could happen. Couldn't, he could not perform. There's a lot of things that go into it. But I think we're getting closer to the period where I think that a deal. I would bet that Charles Omenihu was probably signed by somebody in the next 10 days. I don't expect it going much further than that. It could. You never know how these things play out. But I thought it would take a couple of weeks before Charles Omenihu signed, and so far we're kind of on schedule for that. Hey, Jesus, can you guys ask who are the trainers and where they are training? Talk about the player prospects. Good question, and Nick and I have done a couple of these interviews so far. We did one that just came out today with Jalen Noel, a wide receiver from Iowa State, who is great young man from here in Kansas City, went to Park Hill High School. He was a lot of fun to talk to, obviously a smart kid. And some of these I'm trying to remember, because some of the conversations we may have had, some were on during recording and not recording. That is a great question. And I usually try to ask the players at some point, whether it's on camera or not, about where they're training and what they're doing. A lot of them, it's costly. It's expensive, obviously, to go train on your own. Agents, if they're going to pick up the cost, a lot of them, will do the training up until the combine or help out with the combine. But I'll tell you what, some of the players we're talking to, a lot of them have, are just working out on their own, or they're staying in college and staying on campus. A couple of players that we've talked to were mentioned that they were staying on campus and working out with their teammates, and maybe they've been back and forth. So not everybody, during the draft process, goes off to like an NFL type facility and trains and does that. I mean, some do, but a lot of them just, they hang out with their teams. I mean, it's probably maybe a little bit different for players in some areas, where maybe there are some of the training complexes. So if you live in Texas or Florida or Arizona and California, where there are more prominent, high end facilities that NFL players go to train, you might end up seeing some go there. But of the ones that we talked to so far, I don't know that any of them, either on camera or off camera, have told us that they're working out with anybody but just their teammates and their teams. Some of them, obviously, if they're doing pro days, they're probably working out on campus and getting ready for that. And then sometimes there's not a lot. I mean, it's just like staying in shape. It's not necessarily football training, football practice, anything of that nature. But if you're just talking about, late weightlifting, anything of that nature, you're in kind of a weird window, because obviously, you've got 5 weeks until the draft, and then immediately after the draft, you go into rookie mini camp, and then you're with your teams. So, this is, and some of the players just take it as a little bit of a downtime, because it is their last downtime that they're going to have for a while. So it's a good question, Jesus. And like I said, it's probably a better question about who they were training with and where they were training before the combine, because that's where I think a lot of them were doing their most work. But if you have not had a chance to yet, please check out the interviews that we're doing. They're going to find them on the 41 is the Mic podcast stream. You're also going to find them on the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel here, so you'll have that available. But the one that just came out today with Jalen Noel, he is a great young prospect, great young kid. Last week we talked to Graham Mertz and Jacob Parrish, two, again, local kids from Kansas City high schools. Jacob Parrish went to Kansas State, Graham Mertz, Wisconsin and Florida. Both, I mean, everybody we've talked to, we've got another one coming up later this week that I won't tease it quite yet, but it's another good one, and we'll probably have that up in the next couple of days. But another great kid. So far, I can say we've interviewed 4 players, and all of these are guys that I would say if the Chiefs took them, you would be getting high quality people, because they've been great interviews. They're obviously good players. Nick's our scout for picking the guys that we're doing some interviews with, and Nick knows ball. So they're great players, but so far they've all been, great interviews too, which I think you can just sense their football IQ and they're just the intangibles that you get from these guys. And for a mock draft, I know I'm going to be doing one this week, Jesus. That's going to be up, and we might even talk about them a little bit on the podcast on 41 is the Mic starting this week. We'll have one at the end of the process, because we're getting ready to go into our draft preview starting this week, where we're going to break down different position groups, and we might talk a little bit about where some of these guys fall in mock drafts for the Chiefs. So I am going to have one up on Chiefs Digest this week. Nick usually does 3 or 4, so I'd imagine his first one for KSHB is going to be coming up pretty soon. So it is the season, Jesus, so you are starting to start seeing some mock drafts from us. Dads, do you think the left tackle will be from the draft or free agency? I mean, right now, you would say the left tackle for the Chiefs is going to be Jalen Moore. I think that's the majority likely outcome. I mean, it's better than 50%, because at this point, you're going to be paying him more than you're going to be paying anybody else that's going to be a potential left tackle on your team. I mean, the only other tackle on the team making more money than Jalen Moore this year is going to be Jawan Taylor, but I think Jawan Taylor is going to be your right tackle, continue to be your right tackle. Jalen Moore is much more likely. I do think that the Chiefs are going to sign another veteran. I just get that sense. I think they're going to take a couple of shots at that left tackle spot. So I think they're going to add another veteran. Could be more journeyman, but we'll see. And if it's a DJ Humphries or a Donovan Smith type, I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, anybody that you can come in to strengthen that position and to push Jalen Moore, help him out, buffer him up, anything you can do helps. So I think that would be a good move. And yeah, I mean, if the Chiefs are in a position to draft a tackle, I think they're going to draft a tackle. You can't force it, and that's the only real problem. And I mean, this is a terrible, terrible draft to be looking for a tackle, especially a left tackle, but tackle in general, because this is just not a very good class for it. There's some good players. There are some players who had good production in college, but most of the guys that have the most production from college, most of them played right tackle. The few that did play left tackle, the problem is that they just don't have the length that NFL teams want on the left side. So, when you start thinking about that, and you start thinking about players with the talent, the length, the production, the athleticism, all those things, you might be talking about 2 or 3 guys. And then after that, it is a total crapshoot. And even then, I mean, if you got a player like a Josh Simmons, which I think all things being equal might be the best potential left tackle in this draft, the opinions on him are going to vary widely because of that knee injury. And I mean, I'm pretty conservative on that one, just because of the nature of patella tendon injuries. I wouldn't take him in the first round. I probably wouldn't take him in the second round. I'd start thinking round 3, and I think he's probably. I mean, I know there's a lot of places that have him going in the first round. I think that is hard to do. That is hard to use a first round pick on a guy that might not play this year. And it really depends on just how you feel about his rehab and how you feel about the prospects for him recovering, and how long it will take before or if he is 100% again. And if you're feeling bullish about that, take him in the first round. I just think it's hard to do early in the first. I think it'd be hard to do late in the first. Like I said, I would think about it in the second, but I think I'm not sure if I were a GM, I would take him before the third. There's probably, I'm sure there's going to be some team that takes him late first or early second. I just don't know if you want to be that team or not. It's going to be a tough call on him. Kingdom, name 2 to 3 players the Chiefs should consider shopping during the draft. Great question. And this is one that, Nick has talked about a lot, as far as that, you've got to be prepared, unfortunately, to move on from some guys if they're not going to be a part of your future. And I mean, I'm still in win mode right now. So I couldn't trade just because of the way your roster is situated, just because of the how you want to win. I mean, unless I were able to move up into the top 15 of the draft or get a 2026 first back from somebody so I could navigate next year's board and move into the top half of the first round. I mean, Trent McDuffie would be almost untouchable for me for one more year. I get high value right now. I mean, you would be able to get the biggest return. I just think he's too valuable to watch you do. If I'm Brett Veach and somebody on my staff comes to me and says, you know what, we could get a really good trade for George Karlaftis. And if you're thinking that George Karlaftis is not going to be a guy that you're going to give a 4-year, $20 million plus contract to, now would be the time to trade him. I mean, you could take the chance that he goes out there and this year and has a year that really crushes it. And next year, with the 5th year option left, and then obviously a franchise tag beyond that you could potentially, he could play himself into an even bigger value, or he could play himself into less value. It would be hard. I wouldn't consider trading McDuffie, just because to me, I want to win now. I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, I want to win now. And I think I just don't see how he moving on from McDuffie makes you better in 25. If you're able to feel like you could halfway replace a George Karlaftis, and production wise, I mean, you could make that case, because I mean, George hasn't crushed it yet. I mean, if you feel like he's got a 12 plus sack season coming in him, by all means, continue on. But I mean, like I said, I don't know you'd necessarily be able to get a first round pick back from Karlaftis. Maybe you could, but that's not a guarantee. I'm going to just go down the rest of the roster real quick and see if because I mean, there's probably no one that you're talking about that, as far as trade goes and everything, that's anybody beyond year 3, maybe 4, that would have a ton of value. A guy that could be really interesting from a trade value standpoint would probably be just whomever, and I shouldn't even say whomever because I think there's only one player. I think it's Josh Williams. Now, would you get a ton in return for Josh Williams? Probably not. Could you get, an early day 3 pick? Maybe a little more for Josh Williams? You probably could. He's the one I think that is the X factor because there's probably going to be some teams that are really high on Josh. Right now for the Chiefs, I mean, he's going to be further down the list. I think I get the impression that the Chiefs are more bullish on Najee Johnson for 25 than for Josh Williams. So when you've added in Christian Fulton in front and you got Jalen Watson in front, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to find a spot for Josh Williams. So he's probably a guy that I think would have the most value. I mean, bless his heart, you can't make that case for Sky Moore. I mean, if you're trading Sky Moore, you know that there's going to be minimal value back. It's just the reality of it. So I don't think that's necessarily a possibility. Hey, if you wanted, I don't get the sense that the Chiefs want to. I mean, could you consider moving on from Kingsley if there's somebody else who wanted to consider making him a left tackle? Sure. Would you get value back? No, because nobody this quick is going to give you second round value or early, even third round value on Kingsley. I think you'd end up getting less than that. And if you think he could be a really good guard, there's no reason to give up on him yet. So the only thing that would be really crazy, I mean, and once again, I think that the reasons for this outstanding would make it really difficult. I mean, if you were the Chiefs and you wanted to move on from a Rashee Rice, I certainly do not get that sense. I mean, the Chiefs love Rashee Rice. They're high on him. So I'm not, and I don't think that because of the circumstances you'd get value. So no, I wouldn't trade him. I mean, there could be a team that would blow you away if you put some feelers out there. Leo Chenal might have a certain amount of value, but again, I think he's probably pretty important to what you want to do as far as win now mode. I mean, the guys that would bring the most value would be the McDuffies and the Karlaftises. And like I said, I would not have McDuffie on the market right now. I might be tempted to check the value of Karlaftis to see if there's anybody who's just, crazy about him. I have concerns because right now, if you're the Chiefs, you don't have a starter to replace him on the roster. So that's the only concern. But if you're talking about, trade, that's the thing is that, there might be some other players that if you're in the middle of the draft that you might get an offer on and consider, hey, flipping for a day 3 pick. I mean, it could be there. I mean, Sky Moore would probably be kind of a guy who is in that category. You've got a couple of guys that are, your tender guys with Jack Cochran and Najee Johnson. I mean, and I'm just thinking, because what stands out to me, I think, the deal is probably because it was really early in my beat tenure, but it was when I think the Chiefs traded Sean McGrath back in 2016 for, I think they should have traded him to the Patriots maybe for a pick on day 3. That's kind of ballpark of what I kind of think about, during the draft kind of trades. I mean, that's kind of the level of player. I mean, you're not trading Noah Gray, but it's somewhat in that category. So, and there's a few other players. I mean, like Elijah Mitchell is not new enough. I mean, you're not trading him this quickly, and that's not what a team's going to do. So I'm trying to think. I mean, I think there's a limited number of players that would bring back anything for you at this point during the draft, and like we don't see a lot. I mean, unless there's a player that wants to get paid and isn't going to get paid with their team. And right now, the Chiefs don't have that. They're not sideways with anybody like that other than Trey Smith. So, and they're not even what I would call sideways with Trey Smith right now, because it's not a situation where either side has come out and said this isn't going to work. It's time to move on. So I don't know. I can't say that there's anybody that's just, jumping out to me about what the Chiefs are, that the Chiefs would be interested in shopping and doing something there. Scott, Great follow-up there. Should the Chiefs consider trading Trey Smith to free up the $23 million in cap space to pay McDuffie instead and go with a cheaper option at right guard? I mean, I don't want to say this is outside the box because, people have theorized about this and, have wondered is there a possibility of it? I still get no sense that the Chiefs want to move on from Trey. I mean, it's entirely possible that it could still happen. I mean, especially to get a good offer. I mean, now I think the drawback would be that a lot of teams that might consider trading for Trey have gone out and spent some money in free agency to take care of those needs. Obviously, you made one of those deals with the Bears for Joe Thuney. So I think I feel like if you were going to trade a guard, to the Bears, I think that would have been the deal that you made. Because I think they would have preferred to have Trey Smith, and I think they would have paid through the nose for Trey Smith. So I'm still under the assumption that the Chiefs are keeping Trey Smith, that they're going to get a deal done. And I was always told that, hey, it's going to be later this spring that something gets done with Trey and the Chiefs. Before or after the draft. I mean, I still think something before the draft is possible, but I mean, anything up through to be middle of June wouldn't surprise me. So I think it's a pretty long window as far as which place you could see a Trey Smith deal getting done. I still assume that it happens, but is that a possibility, Scott? Sure. And but now you also have to have the question, and this is where Nick's argument was on 41 is the mic. I think last week was it. I mean, and now that we have the Stingley deal done, and you kind of know what the market could be for Trent McDuffie, if you're the Chiefs and you're not ready to pay $28 million for Trent McDuffie, or at least $25 million plus, I mean, it would be worth shopping him. I mean, especially if you could get a good haul back. Now, again, in the NFL, once again, I mean, corners don't usually bring great trade markets. So it's not going to be the same market that you would get for a left tackle or an edge rusher or a quarterback or even a wide receiver. So I don't know it would necessarily be a great return, but I'm not poo-pooing it, Scott. I mean, I'm not saying it's likely to happen either. I'm just saying it's a possibility. And for what you laid out there would be the reason that if you're trading Trey Smith, it would be because you're trying to free up some money. If you're not paying Trey Smith, it makes it easier to pay Trent McDuffie. Earlier, you get something done with McDuffie, the cheaper and the better that it is. You got to make some decisions as an organization. It's hey, how important is it to have Trey Smith? How important is it to be building the best possible line that you have for Mahomes? Do you feel like you have a potential replacement? I mean, if you don't have Trey Smith, let's face it, you're going to battle this year with Hunter Norzad and Kingsley Suamataia as your starting guards, more than likely. Is that good enough? I mean, Trey Smith's really good. So that would be a tough decision to make. But you've laid out the plan for what would happen. And I mean, if I traded Trey Smith, I would want a pretty good haul. So I don't know if the market's out there. And like I said, I mean, you've also eliminated a lot of consumers now for that trade market. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but I think more than likely Trey stays. I am pretty sure Trent McDuffie stays. Karlaftis is a little bit more interesting question for me, though. Alicia, I'm starring your question because I also can't wait to hear Nick's thoughts on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Because amazingly enough, we haven't talked about it yet. So I absolutely want to hear what Nick has to say. So let's see. Infopocalypse. Who is the third down back right now? Heard that it isn't a good pass catcher or pass blocker. I mean, you're talking about who they have right now, or in the draft. I mean, right now, I would say your third down back probably depends on the situation. If you're throwing the ball, running outside, any of those possibilities, or just throwing in general, I think Elijah Mitchell would probably be your guy. I haven't seen much of him blocking, so I would need to see a little bit of that. I mean, he's probably not the guy I always necessarily want blocking because, he has had some injury history. So I don't know if I necessarily want him sacrificing his body, but he's the best suited third down back, I think. I mean, I like a guy obviously who can catch the football, who can run screens, who can do some of the things that Jerick McKinnon did. I mean, it would be great if that person could sacrifice their body like Jerick McKinnon and get back up again. I don't know if Elijah Mitchell's that guy. I need to go and look a little bit of his film and blocking. I'm sure Nick looked at a little bit of that. I just haven't looked at that specifically on Mitchell to see how good of a blocker that he is. I mean, third down, short yardage, Kareem Hunt. That's who I'm giving the ball to on short yardage every single time, running the ball. But we'll see. I would be interested in seeing. I still think the Chiefs, taking a shot at a running back in this draft class, whether it's a day 3 pick or even a undrafted free agent. I mean, there's a ton of quality running backs coming in out of this class that's going to be even affordable too. So to me, I still would take another shot at running back in this group, even though you've got 3 or 4 guys right now that obviously, I guess if you're the Chiefs, you feel comfortable with. And I mean, honestly, if you're talking about trade candidates and you got a running back in the draft that you really, really like, would you consider trading Isaiah Pacheco? I mean, again, it wouldn't necessarily return huge value. I mean, you could possibly get back more than you invested in Pacheco. He's a 7th round pick. I mean, could a team be willing to give you a 5th or a 6th for Pacheco or even a 4th? I mean, it's possible. So maybe we'll throw it in a sweetener and you could get a little bit better pick back. But I mean, this is supposedly one of the better running back classes in a while. So might have to consider it. Neo-Thomas, can you help me understand why the Chiefs wait to re-sign their young identified foundational pieces? Is it the large contracts already on the books? I mean, it's honestly, I think, been a little bit different for every player. Remember, I mean, obviously Mahomes, they got done early. The earliest that they could have signed him was January of year 3. They got him done in July of year 3, so that was super early. I mean, the first time they signed Chris Jones, it wasn't like the end of the deadline, but it was getting close. I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Eric Fisher was year 3. I mean, that wasn't Brett Veach, but they've made some deals. I mean, Laurent Duvernay HRD, I think was an early deal. They've had a few others that they've done, but if you take a look at some, let's take like that. I mean, they got Tyreek done earlier than I would have expected. So that, for the first extension on Tyreek, I mean, I think that's probably the last one that you'd really say was one that they got done. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I think they got that done in the gap, actually about the same time that they got Creed Humphrey's extension done. So, I mean, and Creed's one that earliest, once again, you could have re-signed him would have been in January of his 3rd year. They got him done in August of his 3rd year. So that's early. I mean, but it takes 2 sides to make a deal. And take a look at last year's group as an example. You had Trey, you had Creed, and you had Nick. And I can't say for sure. I got the sense that there weren't many conversations between the Chiefs and Trey Smith before last year. It could have been just a non-starter because Trey, may have just been like, hey, I want to play this year and see what I can get and see what the possibilities are. Obviously, the Chiefs were ready and willing to make Creed Humphrey the highest paid center in the league. So that was relatively, I mean, if teams are willing to make you highest paid center in the league, it's a pretty easy deal to get done. With Trey, I mean, he knew, and his agent knew last summer that he was going to be the best guard on the market this spring. So he didn't have much of a reason to get something done. Nick Bolton was pretty clear that he wanted, because he was coming off the injury, remember, in year 3, it was important to him. He wanted to go play year 4 and play that contract year out to see if he could maximize his value. So, I think 2 of your 3 players that you would call foundational pieces last year, you just couldn't get a deal done with because they were both dead set on playing out year 4 and playing that contract year and trying to get their payday. The guy you paid, you were able to get it done. So it this year, this conversation with McDuffie and Karlaftis are going to be interesting case studies because, I mean, your first round picks, you have a little bit more runway for. I mean, again, the earlier you get them done, usually the better you are. Now, right now, I mean, the cornerback market's out of control, and I get it. I should go ahead and pull it up here because I know the top line number with Stingley is $30 million per year, but it's not really $30 million per year. Let me pull it up just so I can. Let's see. I mean, it's $89 million guaranteed. So, and we don't even have the full details yet. I mean, it's still all estimates that are in some of the contracts for like Spotrac and over the cap. So we don't necessarily have the full numbers yet, but and even this, I think they're saying 63.5 million guaranteed. I know another number said 89 million. I guess we don't really, it's somewhere in between. We really don't know the full number. I mean, if it's 63.5, then you're really talking about a $21 million 3-year extension. In that case, I mean, Chiefs can, if Trey Smith won $21.5 million right now, I'd sign that for as long as he possibly would agree to it. If he wants 25 or 27 million per year, or a deal that's going to be close to 30, that's a little bit more heartburn. And if Trent McDuffie and his agent are telling you right now that they want 30 million per, maybe you do start shopping him because it's a number that, the Chiefs, there are some positions and there are some types of players that, that I feel like that I feel like their return on value that you just don't get it. I mean, why do you pay Chris Jones what you paid Chris Jones? Because one, there's no other player in the league that has his value, and he plays a valuable position. I mean, he goes after the quarterback and gets you sacks. I mean, he does all those things. So he gives you something for that money that you can't get anywhere else. It's just not available on the market. So, I mean, as good as Trent McDuffie is, do you consider not paying him just because, the chances of him being what he's been for the next 4 years aren't good? And if you're paying him at the top of the market and you're paying between 25 and 30 million, I mean, there's a number in there which you're Brett Veach, you're not comfortable making that deal. And maybe you wait a year. I mean, like I said, I would go ahead and play this year out with McDuffie because, I mean, you do have a very affordable 5th-year option that is going to be some leverage on him because he's always going to be making $13.6 million in 2026. That is a below market deal for a guy like Trent McDuffie. So you've got a little leverage there if you want to get a deal done at any point between now and really the beginning of the 2026 season. So you've got some runway there if you want to wait. But if you wait until after 26, and then you're dealing with the franchise tag. I mean, if it's after 26, you're probably heading towards a luxurious need situation. So and I'm playing this out much more long term than you wanted to there, Neo. But that's my short answer. My short answer is it takes 2 to get a deal done, and the Chiefs have had some just bad luck in some places with players being motivated to get a deal done and not playing it out. I mean, they've in some cases they've had some players who just wanted to play out their deal and see what they could get at when they hit the market. And they've had a couple in cases like Creed Humphrey that were willing to go ahead and get a deal done a little early. Alicia, why didn't the Chiefs want Samaje Perine back? I think it's a great question because I never got the sense that there was anything, with Samaje that was a problem. I mean, he was obviously, once again, good teammate, no issues in the locker room, nothing of that nature. I think probably it was just, that the Chiefs just didn't get as much punch as they wanted to, and they wanted to get more speed in that third running back spot. What you've got in Pacheco, what you've got in Kareem Hunt. Both of them good speed. But Elijah Mitchell has more. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I feel like I know we were talking about this last week. I mean, Kareem had was like a what 4.6 coming out. He runs faster than that. Pacheco had crazy what 4.35, 4.39 speed. I don't think he runs that fast. He runs harder, but I don't think he runs as fast as his combine speed. Elijah Mitchell runs as fast as his combine speed. I mean, he's fast. He's faster than both those guys. So a lot faster than Samaje Perine. So I think a lot of it was that's what the Chiefs wanted. I mean, they wanted a little bit more electricity in that third down back situation, and so I think that's why they went out and got Mitchell, and we're willing to let Samaje Perine walk. Dads, which running back do you like in this draft class that you think will be that the Chiefs can get? I mean, there's a lot of guys that are in this class, and Nick and I have talked about one. I'm going to leave it up to him whether or not when he wants to talk about his guy, because that's his guy, not my guy. So I'm trying not to steal his guy. I've been trying very hard not to do that for a couple of weeks now. So I'm going to wait until Nick shares that one. So that's probably who I have been focused on a little bit. Let me pull up the list here so I can, I mean, I'll go with the Kansas guy first. I mean, Devin Neal, I like him. I mean, the Chiefs were able to get him in the right spot. I'd sign up for Devin Neal. I mean, I think it probably varies about, I mean, like this particular list has him as the number 15 back. That was Maurice Jones-Drew's list. Then it would probably, I mean, you could, that's someday on to probably early day 3. I would sign up for that. I think I like Devin Neal. That's a gettable player. Caleb Johnson from Iowa should be in the Chiefs range. That would be interesting. The kid from Virginia Tech, the ridiculous speed. Like Tootin, I mean, he would be a good one. I think opinions all over the board on Travis Etienne's little brother, Trevor. I mean, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. He's been a productive player. DJ Giddens from Kansas State, I think, is obviously, productive player too. Question, I mean, Ashton Jonte is the one guy that's going to be gone. I mean, you're not going to get him. He's probably going to be gone well before the Chiefs are on the board. With a Travion Henderson or a Cam Scatbo, I mean, I like Cam a lot. I mean, he's obviously when I was talking with Nick earlier this week, called him the folk hero running back. I mean, I like him. It's just I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there, but I could also see why he might not translate as well to the NFL game. So let's see. But Henderson, I mean, that would probably be gettable. Now, do you want to spend a late first or a second round pick on Travion Henderson or just a running back period? It probably would be a little bit of a concern, but like I said, there's a bunch there in kind of the middle. Amari and Hampton from North Carolina, I think, also got really good size. I mean, there's a lot of running backs, and there's guys on the list further on down. I mean, sometimes with running backs, what you get late in the draft, or you get good runners, but maybe just aren't super fast. You might be able to get a pretty fast guy in the 7th round this year, just because this class is so deep. Sharon, when will you and Nick talk running back draft? I'll see what I can get out of Nick tonight. When he should be in here pretty soon. I hope Nick's okay. He's usually in here, and I know I sent him the invite, so hope everything is going well. But we are going to be covering running back. Don't know if I can give you a date yet, Sharon, but we are going to be doing it on the 41 is the Mic podcast. Might be a couple of weeks. I think we're going to combine a couple of positions, so we might be doing running backs and tight ends, for instance, on one day. I can't remember the day yet, and Nick probably doesn't want me to give it away yet anyway. So we are going to be doing it. We are going to be talking about running backs, but I'll ask Nick when he comes in here if he wants to talk about any of his favorites quite yet. Gabo, just a little doubt how the compensatory draft picks work. The quick Cliff Notes version, and I say quick because I'll probably end up being the 15-minute dissertation, but I'll try not to. Compensatory picks, in essence, right now, free agency teams are signing players. This is all going towards the formula for next year's draft. So you sign a player, that player signs for average annual value. There's a formula which I don't understand really well, and even places like Over the Cap that do a fantastic job of calculating the compensatory draft, they don't get the formula completely right. Honestly, the formula is so complicated. The NFL doesn't get the formula right either, because it seems like, I think that's now been the last few years. It happened again this year. Some teams afterwards have appealed to the NFL and said, nope, you got the formula wrong. We should have gotten the pick. And they've had to come back later and reverse and revise the list of compensatory selections. So it's very complicated, but it's mostly based on average annual value of contracts and a little bit based on playing time. So you have to balance that out. I mean, it helps out a little bit there, but what it's based on is the average annual value of players you sign versus players that you lose. So, for instance, the Chiefs, hey, they're going to get a little boost from losing a guy like Tershawn Wharton. I mean, that's going to help their formula. They're going to get dinged for, players that they bring in. So Jalen Moore is going to ding them a little bit. Right now, I'm trying to think of just not the formula. I know the Chiefs are going to be in the plus right now for next year. This past year, for instance, they got 2 compensation picks. My recollection based on the formula was that those picks, one was for Willie Gay and one was for losing Tommy Townsend. So, it's mostly based on the value of the contracts that players sign. You signing players and losing players can cancel each other out. So you're only going to get picks if you basically sign players. Either you lose more players than you sign, or the amount of the contracts that you sign are for less than the players that you lose. So it's not a complete and total, hey, if you lose a player that signs for $15 million per somewhere else, and you sign 2 guys that one's 10 and one's 5, basically going to cancel each other out. Now, you lose a player that's, you're paying $20 million per, and if you sign a guy that you're paying $20 million per, and you lose a guy and you lose a guy that somebody else is paying 10, well, somebody else is going to get a pick because you're not. Because you're in the deficit there. But it is a year out. So, like I said, this year's free agency is for next year's, the 2026 draft. The compensatory picks this year, there's only 30 of them. They start after the 3rd round, and then there's more after 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th that are divvied out and spread out. And so it's how the formula works is, the team that basically loses the biggest free agent, the highest priced free agent that plays the most, gets that 3rd round pick compensation at the end of the 3rd round. And and that's why teams, when they talk about getting a 3rd round pick back, there's only 3, I think, 3rd round compensatory picks this year. So, when you talk about losing a player, you don't always, get a 3rd round pick back. I mean, if anything, it's more likely that you're getting a 5th round pick back than a 3rd round pick. And on top of that, that's why teams, say it's not a 3rd round pick, it's a 4th round pick, because it's at the end of the 3rd round. So it's into the 4th round. That's why, hey, the Chiefs, when talking about last year with letting L'Jarius Sneed, if you let him hit free agency, even if he had gotten you a 3rd round pick, it would have been at the end of the 3rd round. They got a 3rd round pick from Tennessee back, which was Tennessee's terrible. So it was a full round higher than they would have gotten, at least, than had they had just let L'Jarius Sneed walk rather than trading him. And the players you trade do not count into the formula. So Joe Thuney and getting a new deal in Chicago won't count in the formula because that's a trade. So Jeremy, maybe it was me, but it seemed like George Karlaftis was being shot out of a cannon towards the end of the year in the playoffs. Hey, I do think at the end of the year there were some games where Karlaftis looked really good. That I think is has been maybe the challenge with Karlaftis, and maybe a little bit of the frustration is because he has been a little inconsistent at times. I mean, there are times that he absolutely plays like there's a motor on him, and sometimes he has kind of disappeared. So I think that's one of the things that the Chiefs are just wanting to see more of, is more consistency. So we'll see what happens, but I won't dispute that. I mean, I think there's absolutely been some moments where Karlaftis, and you may have picked up a little bit more at the end of the season than maybe I did. I mean, maybe I'm not giving him enough credit for the way that he played, and maybe that's a sign of things to come. I mean, maybe it's an indication that, hey, maybe it was dinged up. Maybe there's some other things. Maybe he's just seen enough now that everything he's learned is kicking in, and he's ready to go for it. Chris, how would Ashton Jonte look in the Chiefs offense? I mean, everybody's high on him. So 2017, 2018 Kareem Hunt. I mean, you get a running back that good in there. I mean, that's the high end potential. I mean, the Chiefs have not had a back like Kareem Hunt since Kareem Hunt. I mean, just nobody in that. If you think Ashton is in that category, then that's what I would say would be the comp. I mean, that's what you're always, if you're the Chiefs, you would always be looking for, would be that kind of comp. And hey, if this kid's as good as people think that he is and says that he is, I mean, that would be my expectation. That's what you should think he looks like in the Chiefs offense. But we will see. Tyler, any idea on when the next stadium update will be? I'm expecting something this spring. We'll see, who goes first. I'm expecting the Royals always to probably be first in the pipeline, but there's, the Chiefs had their survey that they conducted, and in some conversations, I know they've been talking about, when they're going to kind of come forward with those results, and they're at the Super Bowl, they were still kind of picking through them. So, I think we'll probably, I would be surprised in the next 3 months if we didn't hear something from the Chiefs. I don't know there would necessarily be a plan coming forward. I think it's probably more likely to be the next step as far as them just kind of coming forward with what they heard from the survey and letting everybody know that. But we will see. Rick, Luther Burton, where do you think he goes? I mean, I still think Luther's going to go mid to late first. I mean, I can't imagine that he's there when the Chiefs draft. I've got to believe that somebody's going to take him. I mean, there's just too much high-end talent there, too much athleticism. I know his production was down as a senior, but his poor quarterback was, I think, dealing with a lot of different injuries, and I might have my own quibbles with the Missouri Tigers offense for last year that I'm not going to make a mountain out of a molehill or anything, but he got a lot of attention too. So I'm still banking on production from 2 years ago. I think that's an indication of what you get for Luther Burden. And obviously he had an incredible combine. His athleticism was off the charts. That's the guy you got. And I think there's a legitimate concern if people want to say that he didn't run a diversity enough of routes and that maybe he wasn't polished enough as a receiver and a route runner in college. I think it's a little overblown, and I think he's coachable. I mean, I don't think there's some sort of indication that he's not. So I know Nick is in the green room, so I'm assuming he will be able to come in shortly, but I'm just waiting for the thumbs up. So just to let you all know, I mean, Nick is here, so you don't have to continue to listen to me pontificate. You will soon be able to get much better answers from Nick. Nikki, ideally, who did the Chiefs pick in the first round? I mean, I don't want to be too flippant here, but I'm just saying the best available player. I mean, that's what you're hoping for, is that if you're the Chiefs, is that you're hoping there's somebody you got a first round grade on that falls or gets to a point where it makes a sense for you to go make a move and go up and get them. You got 8 draft picks, so you can navigate the draft board a little bit. If somebody starts falling and if there's a player that you love at a premium position, no reason you can't go up and get them. So if a left tackle, an edge rusher, a defensive tackle, I'd say even I'd throw a receiver in there too. I mean, even though I know that the Chiefs got a couple of young guys and they invested their first round pick in a receiver last year, I don't think you can ever have enough receivers or offensive linemen for Patrick Mahomes. So if you've got a first round tackle or a first round receiver, that starts dropping and is available. I mean, tackle, I'd say, once they get past 20, I mean, that's when I think you certainly have to start being on alert to move up and maybe try and get a tackle if you can. If it's a player that, like you said, is a legitimate left tackle that you've got a first round grade on, go get them. I mean, who? I mean, it could be anybody, Nikki. It really could. I mean, it could be a defensive lineman. It could be an offensive line. Could be wide receiver. Could be. I mean, if the best player you got on the board is a linebacker and you got a first round grade on that player and they're available at 31, you take them. So that's all my 2 cents, and that's why, realistically, I mean, I'm never going to tell you, Nikki, that it's going to be. Hey, the Chiefs are going to take Ashton Jonte there, or they're going to take Cam Ward. No, I'm probably, for me, especially, Nick's further ahead in the research than I am, but it's still too early for me to just specifically say, hey, here's a player that I think realistically is going to be there at 31. That's who you should go get. So I'm still open to just about anybody at that spot, and. How about this for a transition? I am always open to this guy joining us.
Top of the evening to you, Matt.
Nicholas, you look decked out for the holiday.
Well, you know what? I mean, St. Patrick's Day is not over in my heart. It is here right now.
There
so
you
top
go.
of the evening to all of you in Q&A Airland.
Top of the evening indeed. I hope later tonight in the lottery that you are able to find your pot of gold.
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. And if I do find my pot of gold, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know. They're not going to know.
See, we had this little a conversation earlier today where Nick asked one of these little questions that just sends off the radar bells in the back of my mind, because I know that if Nick ever wins the lottery, he's not going to tell anyone. Yeah. And the only way that I'm going to know for sure is, if I just notice some odd purchases or upgrades.
How are you going to know? That would mean I'd have to share them.
Well, I mean, like if you drive up in a brand new 2026 maxed out $150,000 pickup truck, I'm going to know you won the lottery.
You still won't know then, because I'm not going to do that. I'll still get my trade in.
If you come to work for me at Chiefs Digest for no pay, I'll have suspicions that.
Matt, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. I have absolutely no idea, sir. No idea.
I know no one ever has any idea what I'm talking about. Anything on your mind tonight, Nick?
No, absolutely nothing.
Well, there's one time
I am a blank canvas.
I saved one. There's technically, it's not a question. It was a comment, but I saved that comment for you because we haven't even talked about this. So I kind of want to know how you feel about it. Alicia absolutely can't wait to hear Nick's thoughts on the Chase and Higgins extensions and whether it was a good idea or not.
Oh, I love it. They should do more of that. They should pay Trey Henderson $30 million a year. Then if they can pay a kicker $30 million a year, they should do it all. Just max out that credit card so they can be irrelevant as possible for as long as possible. Yeah, that's great. You sign 3 receivers to top market value, and you got a quarterback that's making his top value. At the end of the day, the Bengals want to get their new stadium, or they want to get that done. So you need as much positive publicity as possible. And if there's anything that I don't know what Jeremy's talking about with public information, but we will find out. Jeremy, keep elaborating. Keep elaborating on what public information is. But to continue back here, in terms of that part, the one thing I will say is like that's great that they paid him. And I mean, look, before that, the Bengals owner was known as being insanely cheap, and there was expectation that they were never going to pay either one of them, let alone both of them. But I think for public interest, if they want to get funding done for something new, facility or stadium-wise, it was a very smart play. I mean, it's going to be a test study. Okay, I was reading Sean's comment. I got to show it.
See, in Missouri, yes, I believe a lottery winners do not have the option of remaining anonymous. So.
Oh, yeah?
There would be a press release, I'm pretty sure, with your name in it. So I just need to make sure that my Google alerts are set for Nick Jacobs.
Oh, yeah? What if somebody already thought of that?
Then I'm assuming you would probably relocate to a state that keeps its lottery winners discreet and cash in your ticket there.
No, you have to. I think you have to get it in the
Do it
state.
in the state that you purchased
But that doesn't mean you can't make a company with an LLC.
Man, you are definitely someone who has thought more about this than the average bear.
Yeah, dude. I've already got my tax attorney picked out too. Don't you worry, Matt. I've got it all figured out, buddy. Just got to make it happen first. So just keep investing in that 401k plan I got going on. We'll see how it works out.
There you go. LLC is smart. Your picture with a big check. There you go.
No, not if it's an LLC.
I mean, going back to the T. Higgins and the Jamar Chase contracts. I mean, and to your point about the Bengals being cheap, I fully expect that, we're going to be getting some great stories about how like Bengals employees now have to bring their own toilet paper to work and everything, because there's definitely going to be some repercussions from this, because the Bengals are cheap. I mean, that's all the money that the Brown family has, and probably a little bit more. So, I mean, I'm sure soda is going to be at least $1 or $2 more for Bengals fans next year.
I mean, something's going to go up cost-wise to make that money back. That's for sure.
They're going to start selling some sponsorships that you never heard of before. There's going to be like the official denture cream of the Cincinnati Bengals.
The official plumbing, Timmy Timberson.
Timmy Timberson will pay for sponsorship. I'm sure that the Bengals would bang that deal out in a heartbeat.
Maybe.
We also had a lot of questions, and I'm trying to see if I can't find one here. Do you want to talk about running backs that are in the draft?
Talk about whatever you want right now.
Are you ready to talk about, because their dads had the question, which running back do you like in this draft class that you think the Chiefs can get?
Number one right now, I'm curious what's going to happen with Hampton out of North Carolina. Like, I'm curious if the Broncos are going to take him at 20, or if he'll drop down to the Chiefs at 31, or will he be there? Would it be something where they could trade back into the highest second round and be able to make a play for him? He's one of the most explosive running backs that the Chiefs could have. That could be a 3-down back, would be really good in the screen game, would be really good in the pass game, and just be a dynamic player that they desperately needed last year at times and in the Super Bowl. So Hampton's like number one on that power chart. I know a lot of people like Judson and Hendrickson, if I remember correctly, or it might be Henderson. But those guys, they got the speed, they got what you want in that front, so I wouldn't be upset with them. But I also am aware that there's some other guys behind them that I think can bring that same level, if not better. So from a value perspective, I think that's where, if you're looking at this as a team, to where it Travion Henderson. So there's, from a value perspective, there's a part there where you're like, well, there's some guys that you get in the 3rd or 4th round or even 5th round that I think may end up being a better overall player at some point. Maybe not, but yeah. So I mean, like Tutton from Virginia Tech, that's a guy that I'm obviously very intrigued with. Obviously, Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State's another guy I'm really intrigued with, just because of the way his contact balance, the way guys hit him and he can bounce off of them, how hard he runs, how aggressive he runs, his overall size, and the way he'll be able to take those hits. Jordan James out of Oregon, he's going to be a late-round guy more than likely, but there's a lot there to like, both in his ability and his strength. Size-wise, we'll see. Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State is another individual that I think, from a size perspective, fits what the Chiefs would like. Obviously, Trevor Etienne is a guy that I think fits well in the Chiefs scheme. Jacquez Hunter from Auburn, I think, is going to be more of a late rounder, but I think he's got size and speed combination. I think fits really well. Devin Neal from Kansas is a guy that he's got really good vision and he's got good acceleration. He doesn't necessarily have elite speed or elite acceleration, but he's got combinations that fit well into the Chiefs scheme. And then obviously, since I know you hinted at it, I'll just put it out there on here. Right, is Brashard Smith from SMU. That's my favorite player. Brashard is just dynamic speed-wise, acceleration-wise, and I think he's going to be a little undervalued as a running back. And part of it's going to be because he's a wide receiver. He was a wide receiver in Miami, and he transferred to SMU, and he's a running back. But man, in the passing game, going out of the backfield, dude would be insane, and he's going to be one of the better route runners on that front just because he was a receiver before. But then on top of it, just how fast he is obviously just it's tough to ignore. Quentin Allen from Syracuse is another guy athletically that fits what I think they would do from a run game and obviously from a run perspective. And I think that for the most part would be the primary guys. There's some other guys that obviously that we'll talk about in our running back profiles when we do that. Obviously, I know people are pretty high on Caleb Johnson. I think he's more of a stretch run running back to where I think he can do part of what the Chiefs scheme would be. I just don't know if he'd be able to do all of it. And I know Dylan Sampson from Tennessee is another one that's going to be talked about a lot. But I think he's another individual that kind of has certain limitations versus those other guys I mentioned, I think are insanely well-rounded for what the Chiefs need athletically and size-wise.
I love everything about Cam Scatboo except that he's 5'9.5". That just scares me. But he's a big guy. I mean, he's like almost 220. So it's not like he's frail. So I know he's tough.
He's a grown man. He can take hits. We're good.
He's a bowling ball. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I mean, I like bowling balls. So I'm gonna drop off one for you here. This is exactly where I left off before you came in with the question from Nikki. Ideally, who do you think the Chiefs pick in the first round? Realistically,
I have absolutely no idea. I don't know.
Me too.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to be on the board at that point. Like if it's the day of the draft, obviously I'll be tweeting something out around that time that like, hey, here's the guys on the board that I'll be interested to see if they can make it to the Chiefs. But I mean, I know she's saying ideally and everything. I mean, you're waiting to see if Walter Nolan can fall from Ole Miss. You're waiting to see if Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, may fall. You're waiting to see if Luther Burden may fall. Could Egba from Ohio State fall? You're waiting to see if some of those guys fall. I know. Obviously, in one of the mock drafts today from Daniel Jeremiah, he put Josh Simmons there at the Chiefs pick, and he may fall, and there may be options. I know some people are projecting Kelvin Brooks from Texas is going to fall, and everybody's going to keep mocking an offensive tackle to the Chiefs. That's what they're going to continue to do because everybody saw the Super Bowl, and every single person is going to say that spot's not fixed. But I don't know if the Chiefs see it the same way that most of the mock drafters are going to see it. Like, it wouldn't stun me if the Chiefs don't get a corner there. Would not stun me one bit if the Chiefs, if there's not a corner there that they like, that they take at that spot. Or if there's a defensive lineman or some kind of pass rusher, they take at that spot. But from a position perspective, I think D-line's going to have some impact players there. Like Hampton, if he's in that ballpark, you got to kind of make a decision on that front. I mean, I know people are going to be hesitant with what happened with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Totally get it. But it's another spot they're going to have to make a decision. But in an ideal world, you want one of the premium positions at that spot if you can, because you want that fifth-year option to buy yourself one more year if you need to make a decision on that. But since we don't know what the Chiefs draft board is grade-wise, we don't necessarily know if they're going to get correct value at that spot. But if there is an option to trade down and pick up another third and fourth round pick or a third round pick, then I think the Chiefs definitely need to entertain that.
Yeah, I'm cruising through it real quick to see on Daniel Jeremiah's draft. Let's see, because he had, with the Chiefs taking Josh Simmons, he had him as the fourth tackle off the board.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this specifically about Josh Simmons, but I will say that I'm confident that the Chiefs probably don't have more than 3 offensive tackles as first-round grades. So I feel like it's pretty safe that if there's already 3 offensive tackles off the board, about a 90% chance that the Chiefs probably aren't taking an offensive tackle at 31 because whomever's left, they probably have a second or a third-round grade on. Which goes back to, again, I mean, if you're taking best player available, I very strongly doubt that when the Chiefs are on the board at 31, that the best available player is an offensive tackle, but at least in the Chiefs' eyes.
We
But
shall see, Matt.
your mileage may vary.
Things may have changed since the combine, and meetings may have happened that sold them on somebody, just like you've loved all the prospects that we've interviewed.
And there can also be guys that you might have really liked before the combine that afterwards you were like, wait a minute, I'm not sold on that guy anymore as maybe I once was.
There you go. So maybe they're down to 2 first-round grades, or maybe they're down
exactly.
to 1
Alex, do you think Kareem has a lot left in the tank? He will have a full offseason now as well. What do you think, Nick?
No. I'm gonna be blunt tonight. Like, I'm not gonna hold back. Like, I'm just telling you right now, Kareem, what you saw with Kareem, kind of the up and down, you're gonna continue to see. And like, that's not a knock on him. That's just where he's at age-wise. So, I mean, he's going to give what he has, but in terms of explosiveness, like, those days are, for the most part, behind him. So he's a little bit more dependent on his block creating a hole that he could build up speed and run towards. So for the most part, think of him as a short yardage back and a guy that they occasionally can throw into in the flats, break a couple tackles, and maybe turn it into a first down. But the days of the Kareem that everybody keeps trying to force from 2017, that was when he was fresh in this league. That guy's had injuries, that guy's had wear and tear, and like, that's just the way the league works.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that ideally Kareem Hunt's not going to be a guy that you're going to get 20 plus touches to a game. I mean, and he'll tell you he was gassed at times last year because they overused him because they had no other choice. But I mean, ideally, you're using Kareem Hunt in specific situations, like you just said, short yardage, throwing him the football. I mean, you're not using him on an every down situation. I do think that with a full off season and workouts, that he's not going to get the gas situation as much as he did during last year and hit a wall like he did last year. But then again, I mean, he also ideally won't be getting 20 to 25 touches per game like he did at times last year. So a lot left in the tank is probably the key phrase, which is why I would lean on the no side of it. But I feel like Kareem is a guy that you can definitely use in specific situations. But like you said, I mean, he's not the guy that he once was. He's a power back now. I mean, and he's a short yardage power back.
Yeah, he's a short yardage back.
Lonnie, what's the deal with Trent McDuffie? Are they going to wait for the 5th-year option? And I kind of pontificated at length on this earlier, Nick, so I might just ask you what you think about McDuffie in the situation, because we even touched on the subject. I mean, is McDuffie a trade candidate?
So this year, I wouldn't say so, but like, there's things you need to take into account. And I'll do this because I know you had another question earlier that kind of ties into this, or somebody's frustrated why the Chiefs wait so long to sign people. So let's take Nick Bolton, case in point. With somebody like Nick Bolton, part of the thing is that he's very integral to Steve Spagnuolo's defense. But if Steve Spagnuolo moved on, if he got a head coaching job this past year, Nick Bolton's value may be different because depending on what they do defensive scheme wise. Because maybe one of the guys on staff, if they get promoted defensive coordinator, they want to do something different than what Steve Spagnuolo did. And maybe that's, then that changes from what Nick Bolton's value may be. Maybe it needs to be more of a coverage linebacker at that point. So until you knew definitively that Steve Spagnuolo was coming back, I think that could be a risky bet, giving him big money sooner rather than waiting to find out. And people may say, well, that raised the cost. Cost is always going to be there. Like that's just the reality. Cost was going to be there. And if I was in a player's shoes and you made it through the entire year, you at least want to test the market or get close to testing the market. And then above all else, you want your agent to leak to enough people that AFC West teams are interested. So there's that point too. So with somebody like Trent McDuffie, like right now, yes, you exercise the 5th-year option on him. Yes, you exercise the 5th-year option on George Karlaftis. You lock those in because you need that leverage, whether it's for signing, whether the player holds out, or whether you need to do a trade because things get so bad. That is an option you need to put on the table to create leverage. So with somebody like McDuffie, could they give him $25-30 million a year? Sure. And if they do, like we've talked about on this show before, or the other, or 41's the mic, the part of it you need to understand is that with McDuffie, like having a coach like Dave Merritt goes a long way in terms of development, to where you necessarily, it's not like we strike gold this time. We got to keep with it. Because Patrick Mahomes, you pay Patrick Mahomes every once because you struck gold there. And as every Chiefs fan knows, how long they've waited to have a franchise quarterback that you could give you this level of confidence on a regular basis. So, like, you pay that man whatever he wants. With somebody like Trent McDuffie, like the thing that kind of hinders him a little bit is if Dave Merritt still sticks around, Dave Merritt's going to keep developing quarterbacks around Trent McDuffie for cheap. And right now you have coaches on your staff that can develop guys that actually get drafted. You have some coaches on your staff that have a lot of room for improvement. And those are the places you invest more money in. From a free agent perspective, to when you strike gold, you pay that money. So yeah, with Trent McDuffie, like you've got him this year. I think you're going to have to make a tough decision next year, but I don't think you're paying him financially until you get Trey Smith's contract and situation resolved. So until Trey Smith happens, I don't see how you get McDuffie done, because you need to know what you're paying Trey so you can add on Trent and work his cap hits out over a certain frame of time, if that's what you elect to do.
I'm sorry, I'm chuckling now because I saw Rick comment about that was a short answer. I hate to see what the lawn looks like.
Is that?
I think that's what the long answer would have been. Yeah, I did one of my things. I tried to give a lightning round answer, Nick, and I think it turned into
I was like, is this recent?
Yeah, it kind of turned into a speech. So not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Alex, Tom Bahali loves training players. He's already with George. Can we just offer him a coaching position already? I mean,
so here's the thing I want you guys to understand. It's one thing if you kind of coach a guy and kind of do it on your own time, but can also go take vacation.
That's fun.
Go to the grocery store when you want, do what you want, but also kind of get a taste of what you used to do from a football perspective. It's a whole different ballgame when you have to dedicate 12, 13, 14, 16 hours of your life each day, to that, where you maybe take, I don't know, part of July and, a couple weeks after the Super Bowl off. So, I think there's, to be a coach in the NFL is an insane amount of dedication of time and just an insane amount overall Tamba made a lot of money with the Chiefs to be able to enjoy his life. And so when guys go back to coaching and they're making, I don't know, 8 to 15 million less than what they were as a player, like it's kind of at times they can kind of waste what they were making back then. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying like they don't actually need to.
You alluded to it, but I was already looking it up so I could tell you there are 78.7 million reasons why Tom Bahali will not be a coach, because that's how much money he made in his career. And not a lot of guys who made $78.7 million in their careers are coaching. Because like you said, it's a lot of fun to coach a guy or two here in the off season and work with him, and just like every once in a while get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and work out with him and everything. It's a whole other thing to get up at 4:30 in the morning in St. Joe and stay in a dorm room and go out in that heat and do anything. So yeah, I think Tamba has a lot of fun doing what he's doing right now.
I would agree.
Brian, are the Chiefs going to sign Omenihu, or are they going to look like morons?
What?
Wow. Well, I think he's saying that if the Chiefs don't sign Omenihu, that they're being morons.
Well, part of it is we don't know where their cap space is at right now. We don't know what room they have available to get something done. And I know somebody said, well, Over the Cap says this right now. Yeah, Over the Cap doesn't have Nick Bolton on there. Last I saw, didn't have Fulton on there. I don't know if those have been processed yet. and the place you and I can go to see stuff's processed. They haven't updated, and this is a site that people don't have access to unless you're a media member. So,
the Nick Bolton's numbers are not in yet. So
yeah, they're not. So I mean, like, a part of it. That's why I'm not all up in arms about the Chiefs not having something done with the venues. They may not have the money right now. And until they get Trey Smith done, they may just not have that money available to them, to where they had to do what they had to do to get the necessary depth to where they don't have to reach in the draft for a singular position, and they maybe just have to ride that out for a little bit until Trey's stuff gets done.
Yeah, I mean, and it takes two to make a deal, and I'm assuming at this point that there's just still a disconnect between Charles Omenihu and the market for what his services are worth.
No, I mean, the reality is for Omenihu right now, it's a 1-year deal, somewhere between $4 to $6 million, and then incentives that can be worth up to 10 to 12. Yeah. Like that's where things are at right now, and unfortunately, he's either going to have to wait until after the draft when players get cut, or he's going to have to probably, unfortunately, take another 1-year deal to prove it.
And I mean, if you're Charles Omenihu, I mean, this is your third contract. You don't want to really sign a 1-year prove it deal on your third contract if you don't have to. I just think he's gonna have to, and it's
what happened after the ACL injury, man.
And hope that it's his fourth contract that pays off. So, Pano, when are the Chiefs ridding themselves of Sky Moore? Please let it be soon. I mean, I mentioned, Sky is, hey, a trade candidate if you get into the draft and you want to flip somebody for a pick, but
what?
I mean, you're not going to get much for Sky Moore.
What do you think they're going to get?
Maybe a 7th or conditional 6th.
Yeah, I'd say conditional 7th. Just be honest, dude. Conditional 7th, probably.
Brian's follow-up question was, what did we think of Omenihu after he returned from the injury this year?
Oh, I don't think he was 100%. I don't think he was back to who he was in that AFC Championship game. Like, he did what he could. He did the best he could. But no, I mean, I don't think you're going to see Charles Omenihu of old till this September. Then I think he goes on. I think if he can stay healthy, then I think he earns the new long-term contract he probably wants. But he's going to have to go somewhere in a 1 year, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I give Charles Omenihu credit, because he worked his tail off to get back, got back out there, did his best, even though he was not 100%, because nobody's 100%. I mean, coming back from an injury like that and no training camp, anything of that nature, and you're trying to come back in November and December and play playoff football. I mean, I will give him credit for that. I mean, even though you wouldn't do it any other way if you could. I mean, he wanted to play football, and he played as best as he busted his tail for what he could do. Mm-hmm. But he'll tell you, no, he's not 100%, because nobody's 100% in that spot.
Right.
He should be 100%, but NFL teams, they can't take that risk. So that's just the tough spot that he's in. But yeah, people are we're really big fans of your planning ahead for the lotteries, Nick. So I'm with them. I mean,
I have no idea what you're talking about. Absolutely no idea what anyone's talking about right now.
See, it's things like that when you say them that makes me think you won the lottery like 6 months ago, and you're just laying the groundwork, and you're just making sure because I feel like you're going to be one of those people that if there's like a story in the newspaper that, hey, the person who won the Powerball back in last April hasn't claimed their ticket yet, because you're like basically lining everything up to make sure that you're ready to go, so that when you cash in that ticket, you're ready to just transfer the money and do everything. And you've got the, I don't know, the villa in San Juan or something that you're going to buy. And, the I don't know, the piazza or something like that in Italy that you got all lined up. And you're just going to like push a button one day and you'll have your lottery winnings, and then we'll just never see you except for when you're posting about the Chiefs on Twitter.
Matt, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, and I will not share any information publicly about any potential dreams or aspirations on that front.
Oh dear. How can you make cheaper Skyline chili? If there is a way to make cheaper Skyline chili, the Bengals will find out how to do it this year and serve that at Bengals games.
In all fairness,
And
didn't they already get an F on their NFLPA report card for the food?
yeah, I mean, they're going to find some new ways to make some money. I mean, they'll probably start charging the players for daycare and charging them for lunch. I think they actually do already charge the players for lunch in Cincinnati, so that could be a problem.
I don't know.
Dylan, don't the Chiefs need more receivers considering Rice will probably be suspended at the beginning of the season? I mean, you and I, our team, always draft a receiver.
Yeah, Dylan. I strongly encourage you to listen to 41 as a mic every single week. And learn some neat football strategy that Matt and I put out there in the universe that you hear later during the week elsewhere. But what I will say is, yes, and my philosophy is you always want to draft a receiver each and every year. Doesn't matter the round, but you want to draft a guy that you develop, that is on the roster. So if you do strike gold on that, if you do have a winning lottery ticket, that you don't force yourself into a corner to where you have to pay or overpay in the receiver market that's going to continue to rise to the $30 to $40 million range each and every year. So if there's a spot where you can save on cost at a premium position and you get a guy that you can develop during that 4-year span and you have another guy behind him, another guy behind him, another guy behind him, that's whenever you can really reap the rewards and not have to worry about always taking from Mahomes' contract to be able to make that happen or to be able to make that play. So, yes, when you look at it, like the thing everybody needs to remember is, do you remember that last September? Because if you do, New Kids on the Block had a bunch of hits. No, no, but seriously, like how quickly with Marquise Brown getting hurt in August, then Rice gets hurt in that Chargers game. So now you're down and everybody's in pure panic mode. Like the Leslie Nielsen gif that you see where he's like, everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Nothing to see here. Please disperse.
And like puts panic and pure chaos. Or when that one guy walks in, or when Glover walks in with the pizza, everything's on fire in the room. So like the thing is, like, people went into pure panic, but they're like, what did the Chiefs do? What did the Chiefs do then? They're just gonna have to deal with it. Like, I mean, like these are the times you make this move. So like right now, whenever you sign the free agent or you draft the receivers, this is where you make those moves now. Those are what you're planning for, and that's what you should be planning for when the September, October, November, December injuries happen. And then you also, if you can, in the draft coming up here, if you can pick up an extra pick in 2026, then you kind of store that away for if you have to trade for a DeAndre Hopkins or somebody else that you need to kind of bring in halfway through the year because you have so many injuries. You hope that doesn't happen, but like that's kind of, you got to store that away if you need to make those things happen. But yes, if I were the Chiefs, I would definitely draft at minimum one more wide receiver. And if there's two that become tempting, and you have more picks, then I would not be against it. So, yes, I would draft another receiver because you always need to be planning for injuries.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to be planning for injuries. I like the Chiefs, receiver room as it is. I mean, they've got 5 NFL receivers on this roster right now. I mean, they've got a room. And then you've got some guys that you're taking some darts with like Tyquan Thornton and Jason Brownlee, some vets to see if they can pan out. I mean, you still have Justin Ross around. And then what do you do? I mean, I draft a receiver. I pick a couple of undrafted free agents too, and see what they can do and bring them in. I mean, I just, if I'm Brett Veach, I just don't see any other receivers out there that you really need. I mean, you can bring in some of the free agents in on some vet minimum deals, but I'm just not adding anybody over 30 or any of the other veteran receivers because I just feel like they don't add anything to this room. You need youth and speed. You don't need more 30-year-old guys in the room. But you did last year because you had too many injuries. Mitchell, do you agree that if Elijah Mitchell doesn't stay healthy, the Chiefs' running game is going to stink?
I'm waiting to see what they do in the draft.
We have some darkest timeline questions tonight, Nick. Chiefs are morons. The running game's going to stink.
Look, Matt, I don't need your negativity right now. No, but
I'm trying to be Mr. Happy.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, Matt. So yeah, Mitchell. What I can say is, like, I'm not banking on Elijah Mitchell coming off a hamstring injury that kept him out last year, and other years where he has had some injuries. Like, I'm not banking on him to be the guy that holds it all together for this Chiefs running back room. Whoever you draft running back wise, like that's the guy you're kind of developing for the next 3 to 4 years, and that's gonna be your new bell cow down the road. Maybe not short term, but long term, that's what that's gonna be. So Mitchell and Kareem and potentially Pacheco, those guys are insulating that individual, and it's also preparing for if you don't re-sign Isaiah Pacheco after this season. So that's the planning ahead part of it. So I think they have to take a running back in the draft, and it's got to be somebody that's dynamic and that they can develop. And I wouldn't be against the Chiefs taking 2 running backs. But again, that's going to take more picks, because I can tell you right now, if I'm in the Chiefs' shoes, defensive line, cornerback, wide receiver, running back, that's where I would be leaning into. And I'd be leaning into a lot of defensive line this year. And if you could get multiple running backs, if you could get a receiver, if you could get a cornerback, then I think this is kind of the year. But some of that's going to involve potentially trading back if you can get additional picks and create that value. So, like, in an ideal world for me, you get 3 defensive linemen from the draft. I would personally get 2 running backs, get at least a receiver, and then get a couple of corners so that you can withstand what's coming in 2026 with that draft class that may be departing. So, and anything else you get after that at a position, that's awesome. But I think if you can come away with that, I think you've had a really strong draft, no matter who the player is, of really keeping yourself in a good spot to where you're not have to force in 2026 to really have to overpay to keep somebody.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it out there like that and you say, okay, if the Chiefs go into this season with a running back room of Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and Elijah Mitchell, what is your optimism about that? It's not good, because you've got 3 guys with an injury history. You got 3 guys that, either it's age or injuries that have been a bit of an issue. And Kareem less so. I mean, his hasn't been necessarily been injuries as much as I think my concern's more about age at this point in just miles in that body. But no, I mean, what's your confidence that all 3 of those guys are going to make it through the season playing 17 games? It's low. I wouldn't expect any of them to play 17 games, because that's just not where those guys have been. So, I mean, I know carrying 4 running backs, not great for some, but I think if you're the Chiefs, you draft a running back. I mean, I wouldn't mind going to war with these 3 running backs you've got, but I think you need another one. And I think you need one from the draft that's going to be your running back of the future, because I don't think your running back of the future is on this team yet. Are the Chiefs going to take a defensive tackle in the first round, Nick?
Certainly possible. Can't discount it.
Maybe there's a lot of depth there.
There's some good defensive tackles from the first all the way through the 4th round. So, and one of them will be a guest on 41 is the Mic that will debut tomorrow.
Woohoo! I'm very excited about that. I didn't say who. I just said we had another interview that'll be coming up later this week. Another dude that I like, because, as I said, you've been the scouting director on this as far as picking out the guys to interview, and so far everybody that Nick has picked out he's nailed it. They've all been great.
So we will see if the next wave of people we've reached out to, some of them will be players you may have already mentioned in the comment section. Some of them might be players that you don't know about yet, but if we can get them aligned and get them scheduled and get them set up over the next month and a half or month and whatever days, we will do it.
And a shameless plug because Casey Harold's enjoying the interviews on the 41 is the Mike show. You guys have a way of making these interviews very comfortable for these guys. I mean, they've been a lot of fun. I mean, so for the players that we've talked to have all been, to me, like high football IQ guys. I mean, they get into the nitty gritty and some things, especially with some of the great questions that you asked to kind of bring that out in them. And so it's been a lot of fun. This week's attempt at getting people fired, Rob. Do you think Andy Heck should go if this O line doesn't improve? I'm just giving you an option here, Nick, if you want to dunk on anything.
Sorry, I just saw Mitchell's comment where he's complaining about my T-shirt. So
yeah, you can complain about the T-shirt. The T-shirt is awesome.
Yeah, no. So I kindly answered Mitchell's question, and he proceeded to make fun of the T-shirt. So, oh well, such is life. But anyways, look, we'll see what the Chiefs' offensive line does this year. I'm not in charge of what they elect to do with the coaching staff. So, I mean, we'll see how this season goes for the offense. We'll see how this season goes for the offensive line. But overall, this is going to be a very big year because if they have some struggles, if they don't have answers for what the Eagles did, then there's going to be a lot of frustrated fans asking us each and every week on the Q&A, how do the Chiefs fix their offense? And that'll be, I don't know, third year in a row of having to answer that. If that happens. Hope it doesn't, but time will tell.
From Brian, do you have a favorite plug-and-play pass rusher?
I'm still going through defensive ends right now, so I'm finishing that up tonight whenever we get done with this. So, I have a couple in mind, but those will be on future 41 is the Mike podcast because I can't give all of our content away.
There you go. Alex.
Even though people try every week.
If Andy Reid retired next year and you could pick only one former Chiefs player to be the next head coach, who are you choosing?
I hear somebody driving really fast down the highway in your neighborhood right now.
Probably, yes.
No, I know they're on. I know where they're. I know exact highway they're on right now too.
Well, yeah, they're probably headed towards your house.
I know they're not because I know exactly where they're going. Well, it depends if they're going. Were they headed north or south?
Hard to tell. It sounded north.
So. Okay, then yeah, that might be.
I'm trying to think here. Because I'm trying to think of a former Chiefs player that's actually in coaching now that would make sense. And then I'm trying to figure out what you're thinking.
No, I don't have one because there's just not one there right now.
I mean,
the great hypothetical question, but there's not a player that is going through the coaching ranks right now that's been from the Andy Reid era that would potentially coach at this time. Like, you know, hypothetically, if you talk about somebody like Mike Vrabel, like Vrabel still bounced around, and you know, he was at one point he was with the Houston Texans, he was with Ohio State before he was able to get the Titans job and now the Patriots job. So I mean, there's just not a lot of guys you see in coaching at this time from Andy Reid's past on the Chiefs, among the Chiefs organization.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing. I mean, and now part of it, once again, I mean, it does go back to a little bit of, you know, the names that we would probably go to are guys who, you know, made a lot of money. I mean, there's probably somebody that I am forgetting, like, I you know, I don't know. I feel like there's a receiver that was here for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, Chad Hall, he's in coaching.
Thank you very much. That's who I
knew who you were talking about, Matt.
That's who I was thinking. It was definitely Chad Hall. He was the only one that I was like, gosh, I think the only dude I can think of that's in coaching.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only one that's been on Andy Reid's roster that's
like,
because he was with the Bills at one point.
I know Derrick Johnson wanted to get into coaching, but I think Derrick Johnson only wanted to get into coaching of being a head coach and didn't want to to be an
Well,
assistant or any of that nonsense.
yeah, because Chad Hall right now. So Chad Hall's thing, he was with the Chiefs in 2013. He was one of those guys that they claimed off waivers and from the 7 players. He was with the Bills as an offensive assistant. Then he got bumped up to wide receivers coach. Then he went with Doug, and he was a wide receivers coach for Doug. And then now he's the assistant quarterbacks coach for the Giants. And the reason he's there is because at one point he crossed paths with Brian Dable in Buffalo.
There you go.
That is how that happened.
I wish I had a better answer for you, Alex, because it's a great theoretical question. It's just that's how Chad Hall. I can't think of anybody that's been with the Chiefs that's kind of going through the coaching ranks. And like I said, I mean, there's probably some others that are in that Chad Hall category that maybe, we're here for a cup of coffee and are going through the coaching ranks. But like I said, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I think would be good coaches, but they, for, obvious reasons. I mean, I know like everybody's think, oh, hey, wouldn't it be great if Alex Smith came back and was a quarterback's coach? Alex Smith made like $240 million playing football. Alex Smith is going to enjoy his fortune and spend as much of the rest of his life with his family and on a beach as he possibly can. And I do not blame him whatsoever for that. So if I had a quarter of Alex Smith's money, you think I'd be here right now, Nick? No, let's be real.
And Rick, Lake Dawson's in the front office, not necessarily head coach wise.
There you go. Lake Dawson. Good thought. Hey, Nick, do you think Carson Steele's days are over in KC with the running back room? Hope not, but what do you think his ceiling is? Fumble a couple of times, big deal. Who doesn't?
You let him compete. You keep bringing other running backs in that you want him to compete against, and you let the chips fall where they may. Now, am I banking on him to be the number 3 running back? I'm going to try to find guys better than him. But that's what football is. That's what competition is. That's what roster building is.
There you go. I think that's exactly what I thought too. I mean, I think Carson still competes, but got to compete. Jeremy, would some team trade the Chiefs their first-round pick for the Chiefs' first-round pick this year, being to trade up for a left tackle in 2026? So you're wanting to just trade straight up 31 this year for their first round next year. Is that what you're getting? I thought I'm getting from that. I mean, you'd have to add something else.
I mean, they're going to be giving up their second this year at minimum. Then if they give up the first another year, then, I mean, we'll see what happens. But it's got to be a guy that's dropping that people don't expect to drop. And then have to be a bunch of other teams in front of the Chiefs that were not willing to trade and had a guy that they really loved that they weren't willing to trade for. So, I mean, that's a lot of scenarios that have to happen to get to 31.
I mean, and we've talked about on 41 is the mic, the scenario of putting yourself to trade up for a left tackle in 2026. And step one, honestly, is trading 31 this year and trading out of the first round and getting more picks and then maybe including a second round in 2026 so that then you can have or if if you've got an early second this year, I mean, what you're wanting to do is really get as many 2026 picks as you can so you can put yourself in a position to move up in next year's first round. I mean, we looked at like what the Eagles have done, and the Eagles, I mean, they made some moves up in the first round, and the way they did it was because they moved back or they moved players to get more assets so that they could do it in future years. It wasn't like they just all of a sudden woke up one day and said, hey, we're going to move up and get a guy in the draft. No, I mean, they did it because they traded assets in earlier years to get assets in future years. I mean, it's not untoward. It's just that it's very difficult. I mean, if you're going to trade 31, nobody's, for the most part, is going to give you a first-round pick next year because they know it's going to be the pick they're giving up is going to be better than 31. So you'd have to give up something. I mean, those trades just don't happen very often.
And to answer Rick's question about Lake Dawson right now, he's the assistant director of college scouting for the Bills since 2017. So
there you go. Would you offer the Bengals
No,
Chiefs 2 and 3 for Trey Hendrickson?
no.
It would be difficult because then you would have to pay him.
Well, and Trey also don't know if he necessarily fits the scheme the way people think.
That could be a problem too.
And that's a big problem.
Rob, do you think KC can win 3 more titles in the next 10 years? I believe this is the second wave of the dynasty. So you're saying the first wave is over, Rob? You mean you're giving up on the first wave? I mean, come on. I'm trying to be positive and to be the believer here, Nick. I mean,
they gotta win one more Super Bowl before I start worrying about more after that.
Here's where I will be Mr. Optimism and Debbie Downer at the same time.
Okay, good luck with that, Matt.
I mean, I don't think your window is 10 years long because, I mean, I think your window is as long as Patrick Mahomes is your starting quarterback and a really, really good player. And realistically, that might only be 7 or 8 years. I mean, I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is going to Tom Brady it and play until he's 45. So I think you got to bank on that. So I think you think to yourself, your window is probably shorter than you think. And then you're going to reboot. I mean, your salary cap at that point. I mean, once Patrick Mahomes goes bye-bye, I mean, you're just going to have a reboot year and start over. And then you got to go get your quarterback. So maybe you already have your quarterback. I don't know. But I think your wave is still, I don't think the Super Bowl was that bad. I mean, it was bad, but I don't think it ended the dynasty. So I am Mr. Positive in that regard. I mean, I think the Chiefs are still trusting it. Nick, your favorite running back of all time? Not greatest, favorite.
The 2 best are Barry Sanders and Jamal Charles. Those are my 2 favorites to watch of all time, and I'll still watch their highlights to this day.
2 fun guys to watch, that's for sure. Ryan, have the Chiefs made any changes or added any coaches to their offensive staff? Not that they've announced yet. So they've announced some defensive changes, but nothing yet on the offensive side. So Stay tuned. We'll see.
I think they would have already done that if they're going to.
Probably, but you never know. Brian, there you go. Another reminder to hit that like button. Oh, right. What do we got next? You're probably ahead of me, Nick, but Nick, what advice do you have on Matt's lighting? Did I ever call myself Casper the Ghost on a podcast? Or just
you didn't when we were recording.
Okay. I mean, I know I've
now revealed behind the curtain.
I have no. Well, I thought, there for a moment that maybe I said it, and that's what Brian was playing off of. But then I was like, wait a minute, no, it's just Brian is picking up on the fact that I have not yet mastered lighting. I did, however, realize, Nick, that I once again, like 2 weeks ago, accidentally put my monitor brightness on high. So my monitor was probably lighting me more than any other lights in my room, and that's bad. So.
How's your keyboard doing?
Keyboard is still very loud for those of you scoring at home. So I do have a light though. Now, should I tone it down? I mean, actually this is as low as the setting goes. So that's all I have. But I have other options. Do I look better there? I mean, I guess with this setting, I don't look quite as much like Casper, but it also, there is a truth to the fact that I am just very, very pale. So
I don't know, Matt. It keeps you from getting A1C questions in the comment section.
you get more sunlight than I do, Nick. So because you're like shooting high school football and
in the fall, yes, but that's been since November, Matt. We've had a couple holidays since then.
I kind of messed up lightning round tonight. So no conscience. The Chiefs have 8 draft picks this upcoming draft. What would be your ideal amount of draft picks you would want for this draft by using trades to try to get more?
I think whatever you can, if you can pick up, if somebody's willing to give you an additional second, somebody's willing to give you additional thirds and fourths, then I would do that. I mean, 5th round, if you get it, okay. But I'm telling you, like, there's a lot of lot of quality prospects there in that second, third, and fourth round that I'm really hoping the Chiefs can pick up a couple extra picks to really help out their roster.
I mean, I'm going to throw out I'm going to throw out my ideal scenario for the Chiefs. That I know that some Chiefs fans will not like me putting this out there because they would probably prefer the Chiefs go ahead and make the pick. But I'm going to say, you know what? If Josh Simmons is on the board at 31 and there's a team that really, really wants him, that would be the ideal, I think, scenario, because Josh Simmons is a guy that actually the 5th-year option could be really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a chance that, hey, there's a team that really wants him, and because they need them, because they want to build around a guy like that and maybe take a little bit of a risk and don't need a left tackle now like the Chiefs do, that might be an ideal scenario, because then you could trade back, you could get some assets. And like I said earlier, I want 25 and 26 picks, because I would rather have more picks in 26 when I think there's going to be a deeper tackle class and be ready to go for it next year's draft. But there is a reason why I am not an NFL GM, Nick.
You think there's going to be a deeper tackle class?
There's got to be a deeper tackle class than this year.
You think there's going to be a deeper tackle class
than this year?
I'm just checking that you think there's going to be a deeper tackle class.
I mean, there has to be, because this is like one of the worst tackle classes ever.
Okay.
I mean, they're all T-Rexes and right tackles. I mean, it's a really, I mean, as a tackle lineup this year, as a tackle class, there's a lot of really good guards.
Mm-hmm.
You say that like you think I'm crazy. I can't tell if you think I'm crazy or you're being sarcastic, because
I don't know, Matt. we'll see what next year brings in the draft. That'll potentially lead me to my NIL rant before the night's over that people kept asking me about last week.
Well, there is that. There is the NIL thing.
Oh, hey, Zeus asked us a question.
I know. I was going to go to that next. Does Nick have a crystal ball or good sources on the Tooney deal?
I don't know.
That second thing.
I don't know, Matt. Do you want to reveal behind the curtain that conversation that happened? The
conversation that we had 2 weeks before it happened?
Before the combine started, yeah.
Before the combine, yeah. Where Nick tells me that, it looks like Tooney's going to go to the Bears, and
I said or Patriots. I said those are the two most likely teams.
Yeah, but you were pretty sure it was going to be the Bears.
No, they needed O-line help more.
And I floated the idea that I was like, why would Joe Tooney want to go waste the rest of his life with the Bears? I mean, I would retire before I went to go play for the Bears, but your mileage may vary. And Joe Tooney went to go play for the Bears. I mean, has he got the new contract yet? He hasn't yet, right? I mean,
no, they're
I'm assuming there's going to be like 45 million reasons why he's playing for the Bears. But
I think they'll get it figured out. I think it'll be comfortable for him.
Yeah, it'll be comfortable. I mean,
I hope they write some stuff in there about deep dish pizza for him and some of the quality Italian beefs they have there, and then some of the Chicago dogs. I would write that into contract personally.
Can AI replace Brett Veach? No, there's no way, because no. AI cannot do the rapid fire texting that Brett Veach does to make trades sometimes and get things done, especially on draft night. So could not pull that off. Mitchell, if Marion Hampton makes it past Denver, unlikely, and to the Chiefs pick, would you pull the trigger? He's a true stud running back one for the future, right? Can you tell I'm stressing about the Chiefs running backs? Yes, Mitchell, we can tell you're stressing about the Chiefs running backs. It's okay, though. It's okay.
Like I said earlier in the Q&A, Hampton's like he's the guy I'm most excited about in this draft, wherever he ends up. And if he gets past Denver, that would be fantastic, but I have concerns that Denver is either going to go get him or a tight end. Like I've just mentally prepared for like Loveland or Hampton ending up in Denver. But I mean, they may be brave enough, and the Broncos may be like, "Hey, let's go get defense so we can slow down the Chiefs." But I just think Sean Payton's going to want to add on for Bo Nix and really kind of give him some serious speed weapon wise at tight end and running backs.
No conscience. Would you draft a really good guard if available in this year's draft, just in case Kingsley doesn't work out at guard?
No. Interior offensive line, you invested in that last year with Hanson, and you invested in that with Kingsley, and you invested in that with Norzad. Like you did that, so it's not something you have to worry about this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kingsley obviously is going to work out at guard. I think Hunter Norzad's going to work out at guard. So I think they got two starters right now. I mean, obviously injuries can happen, things can happen, so you never know. But yeah, I mean, unless that wouldn't be high on my list this year. I mean, unless there's just a stud laying around in the 6th round like Trey Smith, one, for obvious reasons like that. But do you believe Bo Nix, or do you guys need to see more?
No, I mean, what, it was a rookie year last year, so I mean, we'll see what Sean Payton does with them over the years and years ahead. Because I mean, he really could have taken a step forward against the Bills in that defense. He unfortunately didn't. The playoff game was a little too big for him. So like, I mean, we'll see what they bring for him supporting cast wise this year to really try to up his game. So I mean, this year's that next step in development for him to potentially challenge the Chiefs, and either whether it's this upcoming year or the year after.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it to Bo Nix. I mean, the first month of the season, I thought that Sean Payton had lost his ever friggin' mind. I mean, I thought, what does this guy see in this guy? Because I didn't see it, and Bo Nix proved me wrong. I mean, he flat out played in the second half of the season, so I might give it up to him. But like you said, it's about taking the next step. It's I mean, defenses are gonna know what he's good at and what he's bad at, and he's going to see completely different looks this year. How does he adjust to the adjustments is going to be the big thing. That's the thing it is with all rookie quarterbacks and young quarterbacks. Jeremy wants to know, trade up for the Michigan tight end?
No, let him fall. You're not trying to give draft picks away. You're trying to create more. The only way you do that is trade down.
Yeah, I would be very interested. I mean, I know, hey, Brett Veach got a guy that he likes. He's got a first-round grade on that falls late into the first round. I mean, he's obviously not afraid to move up to where he needs to, especially if he thinks there's a team that might grab their guy. But I probably wouldn't do it for a tight end. I'd probably let him fall. Last 2 questions, Nick, and then we'll let you get out of here. That's actually one of them. So I just clicked on the wrong thing. Brian, are they going to make any attempt to make Kingsley a tackle at all, like fixing his feet?
I know people don't want to believe this. I know people keep latching on to this. Kingsley Suamataia is going to play guard this year. That's what the organization has been putting out there. It's what they're trying to prepare people for. That's what they're trying to brace people for. That's why they put him at left guard in the Denver Broncos game, and they didn't put him at left tackle. Kingsley Suamataia is more than likely playing left guard this year. That's part of the reason you traded Joe Thuney. So you created that space for Kingsley to get the opportunity, or for Hunter Norzad to get the opportunity. I think one of those 2 guys is going to be playing left guard.
Jake, thoughts on taking a developmental tackle left or right this year? There are some long-armed O tackles projected to go in rounds 3 through 5.
I mean, you took a developmental left tackle last year and you moved him into guard. So, I mean, we keep doing this tango, this dance, to where the Chiefs take Lucas Niang, then they take Wanye Morris, then they take Kingsley Suamataia, and then there's somebody else somewhere along the way that they've invested in and tried to tackle as well that I can't remember anymore because I'm tired of trying to remember that. Then they've got Driscoll, who has a serious promise if they can give him time to put it together this year to be the developmental guy at right tackle. But they have invested in the position. They have invested in tackle. They're going to have to continue to invest in tackle. Yes, they could go get some guy in the rounds 3 through 5, and they will potentially be just as good, if not better, than the top of the than some of those guys that people keep talking about in the top of the draft. But if you invest in that, they have to be properly developed. So like people, like the thing I want to say is like, each and every time I want to keep saying it's like, yeah, I can go take this $20 that I have, go light it on fire, and then and I've invested in it, and taking it out of an ATM, and I burn it on fire and wasted it. Like, yes, you can do that, but like, I'm just kind of at a point where like, you've had plenty of players to be able to develop, either develop them or. Well, there is no the ors ... Like that's where I'm at. So like I'm just kind of at a point where every time people kind of and this isn't a Jake, but every time people want to ask me, hey, should they do this? What gives you the clues that this time's going to be any different in developing? Like Kingsley, that was the guy you were trying to develop last year, and you're already moving him into guard. So something's happening there in between the time he's drafted, what they envisioned for him, and what he is capable of doing in that year. Something isn't clicking there. So that's the thing. That's the bigger question that matters at the end of the day is what are they going to do to figure out? What are they going to audit just like somebody would a tax audit? What are they going to audit in their organization that they're going to figure out? This is why the developmentals aren't happening. This is why we've had the failures we have. This is why the Eagles stomped us in the Super Bowl, and fix it.
Hallelujah. Where's the Tylenol?
I'm sorry. I'm just.
I loved it.
Like that Super Bowl should haunt them. Haunt them. That should haunt them worse than the Buccaneers one. That one should haunt them because they went into that game. They should have been able to have a game plan that they could execute and do better, and it didn't work out. So like that game more than anything else, I hope haunts them. I hope drives them and make sure that it never happens again. But it's already happened once before, and it's because the O-line both times.
And this, I remember this question from earlier, and I skipped it because I think it was right when you came in, and so I overlooked it. This might trigger you even more, Nick, but I
hope not.
I was curious about just your thoughts because Keith asked if Jalen Moore is more comfortable and better with horizontal sets, can Andy alter the system and play to his strengths?
Can they? Yes. Will they? We'll find out.
But I mean, I will say, that's my biggest concern about the Jalen Moore signing and experiment is I think the worst thing that unfortunately the Chiefs can try and do is say, hey, great, we got Jalen Moore, showed a lot of potential, and he's going to be even better when we fix him.
All right, Jesus, put up another $2. You need to recognize.
Can you guys make a blame pie?
I'm not 100% sure what that is. I don't know if that's like a chart where we have to do.
I think it's like one of those charts where it's like you have like 95% red, and that's Andy Heck, and then you have 5% green, and it's also Andy Heck but green.
I never said anything either way. And you guys brought out a rant in me.
And Brian makes a point. I'm just saying, yes, for those of you who stuck around for, the
Sean
final
B,
7 minutes.
13. Here you go. We've talked about this before, but we're going to bring it again.
Yes. What schools have good O-line coaches that Nick really likes?
There's a guy down in Oklahoma right now that we've talked about many a times now at this point that seems to take an offensive lineman every single year and turn them into gold. And now that they've got Jim Nagy down there who left the Senior Bowl to go essentially be the general manager of Oklahoma football now and be the guy who's scouting talent, I'm very intrigued to see what they can do going forward here. And on top of that, it's Will Friend. He's the offensive line coach for Bill Belichick. He was really good. He was there during Trey Smith's time in Tennessee, and they were pretty promising there as well. And then obviously at Ohio State right now, look how many guys are potentially going to get drafted from Ohio State. It happens every year, but they consistently at least have that. And then I'll have to do some more thinking on who the other possibilities are that continually turn. And part of the problem is now is like those good O-line coaches get snatched up by bigger programs from time to time, or because their current program better pay them pretty good money if they want to keep turning that out. And Oklahoma's been smart enough to do that.
Yeah, the Bill Bedenbaugh has been the offensive line coach at Oklahoma since 2013. His bio hasn't been updated in a couple of years because it does point out that he had 13 NFL draft picks in his first 11 seasons at OU. And obviously, I mean, in that is Orlando Brown, Creed Humphrey.
Here, put up 915 with Ryan. So, yes, Duke is fantastic. Duke does a lot of work with Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey and has definitely helped them out in their development. And here's the thing about Duke. Duke's already got the whole program set up. Like, I mean, the guys can come to him. He doesn't have to, he can do stuff on his time. And that's what I'm saying. Like, whenever somebody earlier asked about Tamba potentially being a coach and everything, Duke can do stuff on his time. He doesn't have to answer to anybody because it's his own business. So, yeah, Duke's got a perfect situation down there, and it's a tip of the cap to him for what he does.
Is scouting or coaching the problem?
I mean, look.
I mean, your scouts found Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith.
Scouts can only give you the scouts can give you the tools. It's a matter of what you do with it from there. So, like, that's where we're at, and I don't want to keep having this conversation every week, but people keep talking about their biggest problem. Well, yeah, no, Dave Merritt's a great coach. Brendan Daly's really doing a good job with the linebackers. Joe Cullen does a good job with D-line. And like Matt and I've talked about in previous podcasts, like, there's a reason you can invest on that defense draft pick wise, and things turn out the way that they do in a positive way. And you know those resources you invest in that draft pick wise are going to be developed.
I was going to say, should I go back and look up the chart? You know which one I'm talking about. Even though it will not have Nick Bolton's contract in there yet, but we can look up and see how much the Chiefs are spending on their offensive line.
Oh, and Ryan, I know exactly what you're saying. I'm telling people sometimes I put stuff out there to stave off the question that's going to come. So Ryan, don't think that was. I totally get what you were saying at that time.
Let's see.
Because it's like when I go on Twitter sometimes and somebody wants me to answer a draft question, and then I'm, like, I get a couple of minutes and I do, and then before I know it, there's 20 questions on top of it. And I'm like, oh no, I want to be nice to everybody, but I don't have time.
Well, right now, the Chiefs rank number 2 in offensive line spending for 2025.
Oh, you're going to that chart. Okay.
Yeah. 80.57 million currently on the books for the offensive line. The only team ahead of them, the Carolina Panthers at 97 million.
And Matt, my next question for you is, other than quarterback, what position is the second highest in spending for the Chiefs?
For the Chiefs?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of quarterback?
Yeah, outside of quarterback, for Patrick's going to be pretty up there.
The second highest in spending, I'm trying to remember. I want to say tight end.
Oh, I thought you actually physically had it up.
Oh, I do have it up, yes. Yes, they're second in tight end spending.
So the second most they spend is in tight ends.
Yes, 27. Well, they're number 2 in the NFL in tight ends.
No, I don't care what they're in the NFL. I'm talking about on their own team.
On their own team, the category in which they are second is defensive line.
What's that?
41.57.
Okay, and most of that's Chris Jones, who had like a $30 million cap.
Literally over half of that is Chris Jones. Yes.
And Mike Dana, $7 million.
Like I said, Nick Bolton's contract not in yet, but right now, the Chiefs have for 2025 cap spending $80.57 million tied up in the offensive line. I would like to reemphasize that 80.57 offensive line, 69.4 million in the defense. The whole defense is $11 million less than the offensive line.
And that's why Brendan Daly, Dave Merritt, and Joe Cullen deserve
raises.
Tip of the cap every single time.
They deserve
I use the word
raises.
resources in all of our podcasts and Q&As. These are the things that we look at and break down on a regular basis. So could the Chiefs use a developmental tackle at that cost? You sure bet they could.
I mean, if you're talking about a return on investment, your defensive coaches are giving you an amazing return on investment.
100%.
And frankly, I mean, even your tight ends are giving you a return on your investment.
Quarterback's giving you a great return on investment.
Quarterback's giving you a great return on your
Phenomenal.
investment. Phenomenal. Let's see. The Chiefs are 29th in running back spending at $5.35 million.
And it showed last year.
And amazingly, my goodness, this surprises me. I mean, a little bit of it is cap voodoo-nomics, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 9th in kicker spending.
Well, Harrison is like almost $7 a year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but they got a really low cap number for him for this year for some sort of, like I said, voodoo economic reason.
Must be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's I think next year when it really kicks in.
Yeah, I think it's like 7 next year.
So
you had me looking at that the other day.
And they are number 1 in the NFL right now in long snapper spending. I did not realize that James Winchester was now the highest paid long snapper in the league.
Yeah, dude. He's reliable, consistent, and he's over $1 million. Is he 1?
I mean, it's a narrow margin. I mean, it's only 60,000, but he is the highest paid long snapper in the league, and he deserves every penny of it.
All right, last call on questions, unless Matt needs to get out of here.
I mean, are there any more questions? I mean,
no, it's the last call right now.
Oh, okay. So so you got a question? Fire away. I mean, you know, we're this is probably the deepest we've ever gotten into hour 3, Nick. So,
well, it's because I couldn't show up till almost 8 o'clock. Otherwise, I'd have been out of here at like 8:30 and done all the chores I need to do for the.
I mean, I did say, you know, like I go ask you a final 2 question about 7 questions ago before the offensive line rant. So. And honestly, I mean,
somebody found it, man. It's like a game every single time. You guys create the Easter egg for me during the Q&A at some point, and then you tap into it, and then it's like boom. Then it's a show for everybody that they enjoy in the comment section.
Oh, I apparently missed a. Well, I didn't. You know. I got confused by Uncle Charlie's question, which is why I believe I skipped it.
I don't think Uncle Charlie had a question. He's just making a statement. I know the one you're talking about earlier. Or no, that might have been Uncle Charlie. Maybe somebody else. I don't remember anymore.
Did you mean to omit long snapper from the position under long-term luxuries?
He was being...
He's only... I mean, it's $60,000. I mean...
He was joking.
I hope so.
He was joking. So... Well, Matt, looks like we are about done on here. Do you want to preview?
I think you tapped it out. Tapped everybody out with the rant. I mean that was what the people. That is what the people came here for.
I don't. Maybe. Well, if that's what you came here for, make sure to share this live YouTube clip in 41 is the mic with everybody. That would help us tremendously. We're trying to bring awareness to, and like I'm just telling you, like I mean. It takes some work to get these prospects to be able to align everything and get scheduled done because they're training, they're doing pro days, they got combine stuff, they're doing other interviews and everything. So definitely check out the prospect shows that we have that we're putting out. We put out, as Matt said before, the previous one we put out Shepherds, Jacob Shepherds from K-State, and previously Olathe North that he went to high school in. Great cornerback, ran under a 4.4 at the combine, really shined there. Very fast cornerback. Then we had Graham Mertz, who's coming off an ACL injury.
Really
talked a lot about phenomenal guy. He played at Blue Valley North as a quarterback in high school. Then he went to Wisconsin, played in their play action style pro system. Then ran a lot of shotgun down in Florida. Got to play against Big Ten and SEC defenses. That's something I asked him about. And he talked a lot about working with Bobby from a training perspective and how much that's helped him. I think you'll end up enjoying that one. And then obviously the newest one, wide receiver Jalen Noel from Iowa State, going to be a very promising guy that had a really good 40 at the combine, and from Park Hill High School. So he's another guy. And then we have other couple local guys that if their schedules work out, we will have on our show. And then I'll reveal it now for it. Tomorrow, right? Because when we get this done,
Yep,
we're putting it out tomorrow. Okay, so I'll send that to you after we get done with the show. We'll be talking to defensive tackle Ty Robinson from Nebraska, and if you put his tape on, dude is one heck of a defensive tackle. And Chris Jones is a big inspiration for him, as is J.J. Watt. He talks about it, tells us about what led him, what his passion was with football. There's some questions I asked him that I was really intrigued by. Guy has the right mentality no matter where he's going to go in the NFL. And I think you guys, what we want to do with these is we want to give you guys a chance to kind of see behind the curtain with a lot of these prospects. Get to know who they are, have people to root for when the NFL draft comes around, and have guys that you keep an eye on that hopefully may end up being Chiefs potentially. But then also, because I'll just tell you right now, I think when I counted up, I got, 20, 30 emails out right now of prospects we're trying to get interviews with to try to get them on the show. Or people that don't know, I waited too late and tried to get Kingsley Suamataia on the show last year, and he would have been a fun interview. There's some other guys I tried to get that ended up being Chiefs that would have loved to have gotten on the show, but it was just too late in the year. So we tried to get those done earlier this year and get those requests in earlier this year.
Had Joe Alt on the show, who should have been a Chief, but
yeah. And the fact that Joe was willing to do that for us a couple days before, and that's a tip of the cap to them. I'm always going to be incredibly appreciative of them being able to get Joe on here and how hard they worked to get Joe on here for us last year. So yes, we had one of the top 10 picks on 2 days before, and we didn't even get like 700 views on the thing. Sad.
Way the cookie crumbles, I suppose, sometimes. But yeah, I mean, for the one tomorrow, Ty Robinson that is an impressive young man.
Yeah, dude, Ty Robinson, he was a fun interview. They were all fun interviews, man. They're all great people.
And we did. I think was asked afterwards about if he'd had a chance to meet Terry Braden yet. And let's just say Terry Braden's aware, of Ty Robinson already. So. Yep. Because he's been up there, working with his guys in the D line room up there, and so former Chiefs defensive line assistant. There's some connectivity there. So,
100%.
All right.
Do you want me to get I'll get the promo for you.
Oh, you get the promo, and I'll just remind everybody, of all the rundown. So we got Ty Robinson coming up tomorrow. You'll definitely want to watch that, listen to
and
it,
retweet it,
great interview.
Retweet it, share it.
Absolutely, great conversation with him. Mm-hmm. We'll be back if anybody else pops up, might be a surprise, but you never know. Sunday we're going to start beginning our position breakdowns for the draft on 41 is the mic. So. Not going to tell you which positions yet because not going to do it. So it's a good surprise. You just have to tune in each week to see which positions we're going to be talking about. I'll be talking about your favorite.
Who knows?
Who knows?
But we will definitely hit your favorites, the ones you guys are thinking about the most.
Definitely hit your favorites. So appreciate everybody for joining us. Great questions again, as always, tonight. And you managed to poke the bear in the right spot to get a fantastic rant from Nick that is absolutely going to be something that we all need to share with others to make sure that they're aware.
It's gonna be the new thing now. Poke the bear.
Poke the bear
tonight.
Who can poke the bear tonight? I will try to get some sun and stay off the sucrose. I mean, I've lost some weight since I've been doing the Gatorade Zero or whatever, the diet Gatorade, whatever it is.
Okay.
So that does have the sucralose, Rick. So I apologize. I mean, I'm trying, but I've lost some weight with it. So, I mean, I guess your mileage may vary. So, yeah, I'll work on the lighting for next week, everybody. So,
as long as your curtains didn't fall down during
my curtain didn't fall down. My blackout shade remains up, even though it is nighttime now.
Half the battle, man.
When the show started at 7:00, it was sunny. Everything was great. So there you go. We'll work on all of that. I have my projects now. Until next time.
It's all things Chiefs. Right here, 41 is the mic, a Chiefs podcast on your home of the Chiefs. Listen now wherever you get your podcast.